Hey everyone, Brian here. This week we had a little bit of sickness and other calamities befall us, so we weren't able to get together to record an episode last weekend, which is a real shame because we had all of our prep work and everything done for it. But instead of just releasing something from the premium vault and putting it out here again, I went back to an episode that I've always wanted to take another stab at, which was our 28th episode about Z Music Television, which was sort of a broad look of the era of Christian contemporary music that Josh and I and our guest Rosey grew up with. At the time that we made this episode, it was the absolute longest one that we had ever recorded at 3 hours and 20 minutes. It remains one of the longest recording sessions that we've had, and it's the longest I ever spent editing an episode. We had pretty recently switched to a weekly format. I was still learning how to make the show, and I had to make certain creative sacrifices in order not to completely overwhelm my brain in the 2 days that I have to edit this show. So I wasn't able to put in musical clips, and I didn't feel like they were right at the time. But I've always thought, like, what if I went back to it, and what if I put the music clips in there, and what if I allowed actual examples to exist within the body of the episode? So I've gone back to this episode, which I think a lot of people haven't even heard because of how old it is. So I'm really happy to put this thing out, give it a little polish, gussy it up a bit, and see how people are going to respond to it now. And for those of you who have heard it before, I hope you have as great of a time revisiting it as I did while editing this. I should do this more often. Don't worry, I won't. We will still make new stuff every week. Anyway, on with the show. What? So, Rosey, we found out something horrible is happening in your old stomping grounds of Arkansas.
Oh, God.
Stomping grounds. Also,
there's a production of Into the Woods going on.
Okay.
That has Hillary Clinton in it.
Oh, God, no. What? I mean, yeah. I don't want to pay for that, but I kind of want to see it in some ways.
Just like the grotesquerie of the spectacle, you mean?
Yeah.
Like,
what if she just came out on stage as the giant and just kind of stood there and said the lines and then walked away? Like, you know, they didn't even do any like stage
just steps
spectacle.
Up, stands center stage and just says, I killed Jeffrey Epstein.
That version. Yeah, that's the one I want to watch.
By the way, I need to issue a correction. This is very important for our listeners. Yeah. You know, last week on The Worst of All Possible Worlds, we briefly discussed the ecology of the Great Lakes, and specifically the way that the Michigan Department of Natural Resources stocked the silver salmon into Lake Michigan to deal with invasive species. Now, at that time, I had said that they stocked the silver salmon to deal with the zebra mussels. That was wrong. I should not have said that. And I take full responsibility for this. I take full ownership over it. In reality, the silver salmon was stocked in Lake Michigan to deal with alewives, horrible, teeny tiny minnows.
Wives.
Small, just very small wives.
Small drunken wives.
The smallest wives. You've heard of the many wives of online. We had the cliff wife. We had the elf wife. New wife just dropped. It's the alewife.
Not the Elway wife.
This is brought to my attention in the Trash Future Discord. So thank you to everybody who has reached out to me.
Please stop sending letters. We're drowning in letters.
We're also drowning on alewives, but that's neither here nor there.
So many possible worlds, but we got this one. So many possible worlds, but we got this one.
Welcome to The Worst of All Possible Worlds, the first and only podcast for alewives and the husbands who love them. I'm the worst of all possible Brians.
I'm the worst of all possible AJs.
And I'm the worst of all possible Joshes.
And joining us today is one of my favorite people in the world, Rosey Armstrong of Hans Gruber and the Diehards and Los Curados, a fixture in the ska punk community in Austin. Also recently of the band Danger Cakes. So watch out for more of that. Hello, Rosey. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. I'm, just to do a little quick Into the Woods, as we were talking about.
Yeah.
Excited and scared. It's like my favorite line from that whole thing because I just relate to it so much in my life.
You have nothing to be scared about because Josh's lycanthropy only kicks in once every month or two, so.
Ish. Yeah, no, we're in good shape. The reason that this episode came together is that we had been kicking around the idea for a little bit of doing something about Christian music. It's something that some of our listeners have wanted to hear about. It's something that was part of their upbringings, as it was of mine and Brian's. And so we figured it would make sense to reach out to a real subject matter expert to sort of walk us through the scene as it existed in the early to mid 1990s and, look through some of the better and some of the worse exemplars of the genre.
Absolutely.
And from my own life, I remember you and your family, you knew everything. You knew all the 80s stuff that I had no clue about.
Absolutely.
When we got to the hair metal parts of this playlist, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, man.
I spared you from Striper, just used one of the people associated.
I knew that it was there though.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
all that mattered.
Yeah.
There's nothing quite like a Stacey Jacks kind of figure screaming into a microphone about how good abstinence is to really make you reevaluate your life choices.
So Rosey made this amazing playlist for us, running us through some of the most notable and less notable, but very worth discussing songs of our early childhoods, basically, around there. I'm going to give a little bit of historical background as to what Christian music is and like where it comes from, because it's not the same as like the old hymns of the 19th century, that old time religion. Oh, sure.
Give me some.
What about the chance?
Is that a dirge?
Should we give them a chance?
I don't.
What are we doing? What is this one?
I don't know what song
This is
AJ.
the Catholic monk who invented music.
Oh, okay, nice.
So Christian music had some popular scene, but it really was in its adjacency to like country music. So country musicians would put out gospel albums. Elvis had a gospel album, things like that. But it was pretty much just old time religion.
And I don't know just what I do. The Lord wasn't walking by.
Then once we get to the 1960s, we start to see countercultural movements forming in the music world anyway, and bursting onto the scene in Southern California. We have Larry Norman.
Yellow fingered from your cigarettes. Your hands are shaking while your body sweats. Why don't you look into Jesus?
Who was a big deal. I mean, he was touring with Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, The
Oh, really?
Doors.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did he go to Woodstock?
No, he was not at Woodstock because his not his conversion, but his big epiphany happened before that. So in 1968, he has a near-death experience on stage.
Oh, God.
He was always a Christian, and he was always putting sort of Christian themes into his music, although his early bandmates ended up joining Scientology. But he then like really committed to like this new kind of Christianity. He said he was baptized in fire.
Oh, yeah. I've seen him perform.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
tell me about
Oh,
that,
wow.
because my mom saw him perform a long time ago. When did you see him?
Oh, I don't know. It would have been the early 2000s, but I don't know when. But
Okay.
it was Creation Fest. I know. It's great.
Oh,
Great
boy.
name. But it was like a big, you would go camping like with your family or whatever. And my family, of course, my entire family went. There was like a cool part of it, but I just remember he was on like the big stage and it was like, oh, he's a big deal because we knew I Wish We'd All Been Ready, which DC Talk covers and you
Of
guys
course.
talked about during A Thief in the
Yep.
Night. That's just like, that's kind of the memory. It was more just like, oh yeah, he like started Christian music. We had to go see him.
Was it uncomfortable when he performed?
I don't remember it being. I remember him being
Okay.
sort of funny, like making like he has one song
Oh, interesting.
called like Unidentified Flying Object or something, and there was like a plane and he made a joke about it. But maybe I laughed because my parents thought it was funny. I don't know, you know.
He might have been different at the end of his life, but early on, he was kind of known for being a huge pain in the ass, especially to like churches when he
God.
performed at churches. Like, churches tend to want to have your vocals above your instrument. And he wanted to have his vocals and his instrument the same. And he played a nylon string guitar. So, he really had that mic turned up. And he said, this is rock and roll, man. And so if he could tell that they had gotten his vocals louder, he would look at some poor like church volunteer in the sound booth
Sure.
and play his guitar at guitar level and then play it at mouth level. And he'd say, see, it's louder up here. We don't want that. This is rock and roll. Come on.
How
man.
obnoxious. Oh my God. Especially after being a musician.
He just sounds like a really cool guy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
When my mom saw him in the early 70s, he didn't make eye contact with the audience. He like looked sort of off to his right the whole time.
Well, there were UFOs, Brian.
Exactly.
And instead of a water bottle or like a cup and a pitcher of water, he had a KFC bucket on a stool. And he'd play a song, and it was like far away from him. So he'd play a song sitting down. He'd go over, take a drink of water from the bucket, from a literal fried chicken bucket.
Here's the thing. That's how he
What a
almost
pervert.
died. Yeah. Like there was a fried chicken in the bucket while he tried to drink it.
Boy.
That's the story. No.
What almost
okay.
killed him was the stage opening up and almost crushing him.
And underneath the stage, chicken.
Fried chicken.
I think it was stuff like that is what led him to just have a chicken bucket on stage after
Right,
that.
right.
He just like wouldn't allow applause or anything like that. Didn't really talk to people. He never signed things. That was sort of one of the things he was famous for. He's a very, very interesting person, to say the least. So Jesus Music took off. He started his own label called Solid Rock Records in between working professionally, doing like session music for a bunch of other acts. Then Randy Stonehill, Debbie Kerner, and Eric Rotino, who are the creators of Salty,
the
you know, like
singing
these
songbook band.
these people
Oh, yeah.
all start
Remember that.
showing up. Andre Crouch, Second Chapter of Acts, Terry Talbot. They start to become the Jesus music scene, right? And this is an offshoot of the Jesus movement, which were people who were basically Christian hippies.
Yeah. We have one of those like 70s songbook kind of Jesus movement
yeah.
hippie songbooks. Yeah.
There was gospel here, but they are starting to add R&B, folk, country, and rock, right? Which was very controversial at this time. So they're trying to be countercultural in both directions, right? They're rejecting what is going on in the evangelical church, but they're still evangelical. They're still trying to cast off the shackles of secular America. As Rosie said, Larry Norman's song, I Wish We'd All Been Ready, was in Thief in the Night. Then something interesting happens. There's a musician named B.J. Thomas.
Acronyms, I don't trust him.
So he was a secular musician. He was famous for Hooked on a Feelin' and for Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head.
Okay.
Great songs.
And the music industry chewed him up. I mean, he delved deep into alcoholism and drug abuse. His marriage almost ended. His career was dead in the water. I mean, it probably just would have killed him within a year. But then he had this conversion experience, turned around, saved his marriage, and joined the new Myrrh Records. And in 1976 released a Christian album called Home Where I Belong.
Without a doubt, I've had my doubts. Without a doubt.
Goes platinum.
Wow.
It's the first Christian album ever to go platinum.
I don't know this one.
Right. It's not a solid piece of history. My parents have this record, though. And this is when Jesus music becomes CCM, Contemporary Christian Music. This same year, Amy Grant signs on with Myrrh at the age of 15.
Holy shit.
Ooh.
And Keith Green
Yeah,
also starts up with Sparrow Records in 76.
Okay, yeah, I'm familiar
Keith
with-
Green is also deserving of his own episode.
I told Brian I can do an entire punk ska one. Like, you don't think I could. Punk ska, Christian, I can't.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
No, that's all I want.
I think we need you and like Scott Benson back on to talk about
Oh, that would be
Yeah.
awesome. There's just one point that I wanted to add about Myrrh, which I think is really important
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
It was a sublabel of Word. Word, we're going to see
Oh,
it
yes.
in
Yeah.
so many of the songs that we are going to be listening to as part of this episode today. Word was really the first big CCM, like powerhouse label based out of Nashville.
And do you know how Word started, Josh?
Well, it was in the beginning.
Was the word.
There was the
And the
word.
word was with God.
AJ, how did you know that
got your
verse? You're
back.
Catholic.
You don't read the
I
Bible.
have read a Bible.
Catholics don't know what the Bible is.
So Word began in the early 1950s. Now we have this Southern California movement, and it's been devoured by Nashville.
And it's commercial as fuck. You know,
Oh,
Word
yeah.
was owned by ABC, like that
Yep.
ABC,
Oh,
American
fascinating.
Broadcasting Corporation. And then in the later, like in the early 2000s, got acquired by Warner. So like
Yep.
it is straight up like national entertainment money
and
all the way
as
down.
you'll see with almost all of these record labels, either they dissolved or they are owned by UMG or Sony or whatever.
Right.
Right.
So in 1978, we get CCM magazine, which becomes the trade paper for the industry, right? It's the billboard of Christian music, even though Billboard also tracks Christian music. And this goes through the 80s. And in 1993, some enterprising people in Florida start a channel known as Z Music Television.
Yes, in Florida. I didn't know
Well,
that.
it was in Florida for about a year, and then it got bought by actually the Gaylord Entertainment Company, whatever they were called. So they own all the Gaylord hotels, and they own the Ryman. So they're the Grand Ole Opry owned ZTV.
I remember because I had watched so much Z Music Television, or ZTV as we'd call it as kids.
Yeah.
Like, we visited Nashville once as a family, and we went looking for it. We like went to the Grand Ole Opry. We're like, where's ZTV? We need to find it, which we could not find.
I want my ZTV.
Yes. It was like a whole family mission.
Tell us more then about like ZTV and the experience of watching ZTV. What was so interesting about it? How did it get into your home? And what are your key memories associated with that?
Oh, gosh. So one of my key memories is that, like, I grew up in the middle of nowhere. Not the reservation, but like right next to it. So like Checkerboard, which is like a mile squared, is freely owned. A mile squared is like native owned land. Sure. And so we didn't have whatever it was called, your normal TV, like normal people. We had a big old satellite in the back, like it's still there, like a big dish. And my dad would just like crank it. We'd open the window and he'd just crank it and like steal shit from the skies and be like, "Can you see anything on the TV yet?" You know, and we'd be like,
so he was just pirating television using a radio dish?
Absolutely.
That is sick.
My parents are like a very fun dichotomy, like punk as fuck and very cool, and then sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm confused. But anyway.
They really are like true Jesus movement type people.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
Yeah, so he would just like do that until it came onto whatever channel. And normally he would like...
It's amazing.
Everyone, like during March Madness, he would kind of change it, right? Because he wanted to watch the games or whatever. But normally he would just have it stationed on ZTV, and that's all we had.
Excellent.
This is the only TV. And we didn't even have that many VHSs. Like we had a few, like Little Mermaid was recorded that we watched a million times. And like we just didn't watch very much TV. Mostly we played outside, but this is the one thing we had. And I don't think my parents realized, but there was definitely some softcore porn like that we could like, you know. So it's pretty funny.
Rosey, did your parents also record movies off of TV to have on like VHSs? Yeah.
Yes.
My dad was a big proponent of that too, which is, I think I've told this story on the podcast before, but how I only saw the color portions of The Wizard of Oz and not the beginning or the end, because they missed when it started, and then to make me not confused about the plot at the end, they stopped it before she went back to Kansas.
There's a great thing from our tape of Raiders of the Lost Ark where once they open the Ark of the Covenant up and everyone's faces starts, melting and exploding and everything. It just is like they change the channel and there's a Popeye cartoon playing and then occasionally kind of flip back to see if the faces are still melting, and then it changes back to the Popeye cartoon.
Excellent.
See,
fantastic.
When my parents, I think were either when we were little or without kids, they'd go down to Zuni and like go to parties and stuff. So they tell us in the 80s. And they would just like leave a VHS recording all night TV, and then they had all these like recorded that they didn't think we'd look at or like
just
find.
Like random tapes.
Yes. And so we've watched some really weird movies, like like The Men of UNCLE, which is like a really funny like go-go kind of like like weird, like we've seen a couple of those episodes and I loved all the go-go dancers. I thought they were so cool. And then The Making of Mr. Right, which was like some weird like 70s probably sci-fi about like a lady who falls in love with like some guy's like robot version of himself, and I don't know, like all these weird things that that we just discovered one summer, like, oh, let's watch all these VHSs.
And so you also had a bunch of ZTV on tape then?
Correct. In fact,
Excellent.
I don't know where it is, but yes, I still have some, and I took some from my parents' house because I was like, this is amazing. Like, Kurt is like really good at the internet. Like, I'm terrible, right? I'm a Luddite. I didn't have TV. I didn't have internet until my parents didn't have internet until I was in college. Like, whatever. I was living out in the boonies. I checked my email at school in Gallup.
This is why she's so good at the bassoon and the saxophone.
Nothing to do except
no distractions.
Play shit outside. Yeah, these songs are just like ingrained in my memory. Like someone will say something and I'll just like bust into song, and I'm like, you don't know that song, Kurt? You don't remember that? You don't remember X and X? Weird.
There is no safe way.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Rosey, I was thinking the other day, what if cartoons got saved? What do you think might happen in that situation?
Ooh.
Yeah, what, do you think they'd sing praise? And do you think they'd do it like the rest Like the normal way that
most
other people
sing
do it?
praise.
Kermit the Frog here singing Hi Hallelujah.
I think maybe then the best way for us to get a feel for what the thing is just to sort of start digging into some of these songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Rosey made us this incredible playlist of just artists that I maybe knew one of. And that was, of course, Amy Grant, right?
You didn't know who Dolly Parton was?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we did. We also did listen to Dolly. And of course I know Dolly.
The gates and doors were barred and all the windows fastened down. I spent the night in sleeplessness and rose at every sound. Half in hopeless sorrow and half in fear the day would find the soldiers breaking through to drag us all away.
That was a great choice, Rosey, because what it looks like, just going off of Wikipedia and other sources, but mostly Wikipedia, Z Music Television threw in a lot of regular Nashville kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And not just gospel, but even just like secular kind of country music.
Especially in the gospel and country, which I think is an interesting thing to know. Somehow those two cultures, like, I don't know if they just have more God in the culture. So there's like less of like, it needs to be so different, you know, or what.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, there was a lot of crossover. Because I remember like their country, sort of like Our or whatever, also had like a Cats in the Cradle. It might have been a cover, but that's why I knew that song.
They had a dedicated country hour?
They did, yeah.
Well, I feel like CMT kind of does this stuff too,
Yeah,
where
sure.
it's just like, oh, here's like in the other direction, where it's like, oh, this song's very Christian,
Right. Yeah, don't they like on Sundays? Don't they have like a Christian music like block? I think they might.
It's possible. Yeah. So
I know BET
So
did
like
for a long
ZTV
time.
is of course like ZTV knows what it's aiming for, but it's also kind of playing with this like we're trying to draw people in, right? It's like Power Team. It's like people want to see regular fun stuff,
Rip
and
their phone book.
we're gonna bring Jesus to them,
Right.
And so having Dolly Parton here, this is the old way gospel used to work. Like a country musician doing a gospel album is the same as like anybody doing a Christmas album. It was just like a thing you did. And Dolly Parton, of course, is an extremely devout Christian.
Yep.
Famously, when she went on SNL, you know, they always have to kind of figure out what each host is going to be okay with. And she just said right from the start, you can make fun of anything. I've made all the jokes before. Just don't make fun of the Lord. That was it.
This video starts with just fucking Dolly Parton. And she's out there and she's singing about the Lord, right? Doing it as only Dolly can.
But there was no one there but Mary, so I went down to let her in. John stood there beside me as she told me where she'd been. She said they'd moved him in the night and none of us knows where. The stone's been rolled away and now his body isn't there. So we
Well, I was very disappointed to find that the song was not about Frankenstein. I just want to read a comment that was posted at the bottom of the video for this one. It says, "No dancers, no light show. You don't need anything else except the singular musical talents of Dolly Parton."
I mean,
They're not
wrong.
yeah, but like there is a light show.
Yeah.
And there's a scrim and a full choir.
And the scrim comes up and all these guys come out. Right.
Choir reveal is pretty cool.
It's still very,
it's
very
cool.
technical and theatrical.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you didn't need that choir. Dolly Parton could have just done that whole fucking thing herself.
He's alive! Oh, he's alive! Oh, he's alive and I'm forgiven. Heaven's gates are open wide. He's alive! He's alive! He's alive and I'm forgiven.
It really is just singing about the experience of seeing Jesus die. Then, of course, after that, it's about seeing him come back. And the thing that's so amazing about this video is that it's just Dolly. It's just her singing. She has this incredible ability to tell the story through the dynamics of how she sings, which has always been her incredible talent. And then when she really opens up vocally, like I got goosebumps. It was like, God damn, she's still one of the best to ever do it.
Yes.
Yeah, no, she's transcendent.
2 fun asides. I actually just got to see Dolly Parton live.
Hell yeah.
Which was amazing. Yeah. And and so it was really fun to kind of be like, oh, I get to talk about her and talk about this song, which, growing up, this was the only song I knew by her. So I guess to maybe sort of answer your question a bit, Josh, is that, that was part of, I guess, the experience of watching it. And actually, there's sort of like a stupid but sort of naughty like family story has to do with this. If we're ready to go down there, are we ready? We're ready. Okay.
Let's hear it.
So as we just talked about how amazing she is, and like I agree with just how she could story tell so well. So my mom would always tell us, like, she likes sort of like naughty, like doctor jokes, I think, because she's a nurse.
Yeah.
She always used to tell this story of how she was like, oh yeah, we'd be watching Dolly Parton. We were watching Dolly Parton, and your brother, when he was breastfeeding age, and when she came on that screen, you know, he started to get hungry. I'm just really okay.
Hell yeah.
Like that was like a family story that we like handed down for like years.
Does your mom still lean over to your brother sometimes and be like, "You getting hungry?" Every
my
time
God.
Dolly Parton appears on camera.
Oh, probably. Oh, she probably would.
Oh,
Tell
boy.
us more, Rosey, about like why you picked this one. And like you said, this is the only Dolly Parton song that you knew, right? What about it is so indelible in your memory?
Yeah, I think just the way that she sort of told the story like was really captivating. Even when I was young, even when I didn't have much of an attention span, you know, I sort of remember the whole thing. And then I also wanted to like not include only like terrible songs. I wanted to put some in there that were like actually good, because there is some, right? Like there is some good songwriting and some like really famous people, and like, and it was so interesting, Brian, like you were saying, she's still a devout Christian. I don't think I like really like had that in my brain, because more recently, like she's such an icon of like the punk community here is like when we eat the rich, one shall be spared, you know, like Dolly
everyone
is
loves
spared.
Dolly,
Yeah. And so like, and a gay icon and all these things in such a secular way that I thought it was so interesting. I just think that's so interesting. And then when I went to see her live, like, yeah, she's like, I love Jesus so much, and Jesus loves you, and he'll get you through the hard times, you know. And granted, it was from a very like genuine place. And like, it reminds me of this meme that's like when I watch Prince of Egypt, all my religious trauma goes away. And like, that was the same. Like,
No, I mean, she embodies so much of what, you know, the actual good teachings of Jesus are.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
she's literally caring for the sick. She funded our vaccines for this pandemic. Like, she really is sort of like living the word truthfully in a way that, you know, I think a lot of the other musicians on here seem to be, I don't know, some of them seem cynical to me, and then some of them seem pure but just untalented. Like it's such a cool grab bag of like what makes up CCM.
I think it's also like, it's hard to tell sometimes, and we'll get to this when we get on to some more of these examples. Sometimes it's hard to tell the line between the cynicism of the artist versus the cynicism of the industry behind it, right? And I think what's interesting about this Dolly Parton clip is that it captures a really, really interesting inflection point. This is 1989. This is right as all of this stuff is bubbling under. You know, we have Myrrh Records is around, Word is around, a lot of these labels are around. The big labels are seeing the potential for Christian music, but it's still pretty small scale.
Right.
The next videos that we're going to look at really show us what happened when CCM began to become more of a mainstream pop phenomenon and made the crossover. And the first one that I want to talk about is Amy Grant, which you, of course, had mentioned, AJ. This is Baby Baby from Heart in Motion, which was released on Myrrh in 1991.
It's just,
It's good.
It's good.
It's a good pop
It's
song.
under your skin.
Yep.
Even in the parody song that was also included in this playlist,
Oh, I
it
know.
still got me.
You know,
it's
sadly,
still-
that's the one that comes up first in my brain is the Mark Lowry
Yeah,
version, which
yeah.
is really depressing for me.
Ooh, I have so many questions for you about
and
that, man.
you can see that like with Amy Grant, especially at this time that Baby Baby comes out. This is early 90s, right?
This is 91.
Yeah.
Right. So like I said, she started in 76. She was 15 years old. She was just a few weeks away from turning 16, and her career was meteoric. I mean, like she really just came up. Myrrh Records really pushed her, and she made a huge splash all throughout the 80s. Then she starts to get like actual crossover.
Right.
appeal. And you can see that this video is being directed with that in mind.
Absolutely.
They're not trying to appeal to the CCM crowd.
Right.
She is
Sexy.
hip. She's hot.
Oh my God, she's so hot.
I know.
She's so hot in this video.
She's cosplaying as one of the Droogs from Clockwork Orange.
The video looks like Never Gonna Give You Up, something like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
It's very polished. It's very well put together. No weirdness, no terrible choreography like you'll see in some of these other videos.
Right.
It's
Oh, boy.
just man, it just hits, and that song will not get out of your head.
And Amy Grant, in terms of like her rise in the 80s, you know, my parents were at a Christian college in the 80s, and they got to witness the rise of Amy Grant as well as Michael W. Smith, who we're going to talk about in a moment, firsthand. By the point that she got to 91 here, like, it is hard to overstate just how influential she was within Christian circles.
Yeah.
Like, she had basically reached the ceiling that is possible to be reached within Christian circles because she blew up so big in the 80s.
And she was such a nexus, too, because people like Michael W. Smith,
Mikey
and
Dubs,
Rich Mullins.
Smitty.
Because Mike and Dick, they were writing songs for her. A lot of these big artists started out like working for her or as a musician with her, and then opening for her, and then going on and having their own massive solo success. That's the story for many people on this list. And Baby Baby specifically got so popular that it basically couldn't be ignored. It started playing all over the place, and MTV started airing it because it was already a hit.
I didn't know that.
And it even got a VMA nomination.
Wow.
And it also was a Billboard #1.
All I know is that the local radio station in San Diego, California, Kixie 96.5, soft rock that my mom would exclusively listen to on every drive to everywhere we went, played Baby Baby, I think once every hour, at least once every hour.
Yeah.
And it you never complain because it's a bop, man.
This video is, first of all, very horny, actually.
Yeah.
Like, not in an aggressively sexual way, but this is not just about platonic love. This is about two people who are horny for each other, right?
And it's very obviously not about Jesus. There's no I actually mean Jesus here. Not at all.
No.
They reenact the meme at the beginning, the checking out the girl walking down the street meme.
They do.
Like, that's like within the first shot of the thing. You're like, I mean,
And it's lots of quick cuts between different scenes of Amy and her boyfriend, who, by the way, very controversially, was played by an actor and not her at the time real life husband, Gary Chapman.
Who she got a divorce with, and it was a big
in 1999.
scandal. I remember this.
who is a descendant of Johnny Appleseed himself, John Chapman.
Probably.
Oh my God.
Gary Chapman was a big enough name in CCM.
He was. I thought about
in his own
him.
right. I forget, who did she marry? She married someone else
Gill.
the next year who was Vince Gill.
It was Vince Gill.
Guy. But she only married him a year later, which was also this huge controversy.
And that was the other thing
After
too.
10 years of Amy Grant being too sexy.
Right.
She's just so sexy.
Right.
With all her clothes on.
It's causing our brothers in Christ to stumble.
But you know what's funny is that, like, again, with this video, the Mark Lowry version is the one that lives in my memory more strongly.
Yes.
At last I found a guide to Christian courtship. Now I can be a ladies' man of God.
So, like, I know the song, and I was trying to think, we need Amy Grant in there, and I'm trying to think, what was the one that's more in my memory is Pave Paradise and Put Up a Parking Lot, which is a cover, but I remember that music video very well. But I was like, well, I should do an original, and like, Kurt Witchman, I kind of threw it to Kurt, and he's like, well, Baby Baby, of course, because he like, he like had like the lesser intense level of CCM where he like likes to listen to Michael W. Smith, Amy Grant Christmas, like every Christmas, and that's about it. This video isn't even as like ingrained in my memory, but it was like, oh, this is the really famous song. Like, I got to do this one. And then when I watched it again, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this. I mean, this is fun.
Did they show Baby Baby on ZTV? I would imagine not, right?
I think they did. I think they did. It was familiar. Once I played it, I was like, oh yeah.
And because, again, they were trying to show stuff that was getting play on the mainstream channels as well. So yeah, Mark Lowry did to you what Weird Al did to so many of us.
Right.
His version just supplanted the main one in your head. So let's talk a little bit about Baby Why Not Me?
Yeah.
Which takes its lyrics from the Song of Solomon.
Correct.
It says your nose is like a tower, legs like cedar trees. Your hair is like a flock of goats, pomegranates are your cheeks. Your navel's like a goblet, teeth like little sheep. If Solomon can say it, baby, baby, why not me?
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear for this one, AJ. This seems like one that is tailor-made to destroy you. Right?
Yes. I've never seen somebody be like, okay, so this joke isn't working. What if we did every joke? at once. There's a bit where they parody a Bob Dylan music video for some reason.
Yeah, the Subterranean Homesick Blues with the cards.
Like, I think Weird Al is a genius in that he is somehow able to take the repetitive nature of pop music and turn it into a comedy song and somehow find a way to escalate it at every single chorus break, which is something that most pop music, and it's also why, you know, getting on my soapbox for musical theater, it's why jukebox musicals have such a hard time working, is because the structure of a pop song makes it so there's no build to it, and musical theater songs have to build to be effective. What sucks about this one is that he seems to have taken one passage from Song of Solomon and not gone to any of the other
not talked about breasts like deer or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, it's just he focused on the nose like towers because he can't get over the fact that that's like the funniest thing in the world to him, and it's just not funny.
Just to take a quick step back here then, Mark Lowry could be considered, I guess, the Christian Weird Al.
Well, it's a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, he does have a few parody songs, like for instance, he did "Livin' for Deep Fried Okra."
Oh, I didn't know that one.
Lowry's he's a comedian. You know,
Yeah.
That's his thing. So there's some parody songs, but he's also a singer. He started with Bill Gaither. Bill Gaither's a big name in the gospel music scene. If you watch The Righteous Gemstones, Jesse Gemstone, his style is just Bill Gaither.
Yep.
Yeah, we used to have a Mark Lowry VHS that was like the comedy VHS we would watch.
Was this on it?
I don't. It might have been. It might have been. Yeah. It also was on ZTV though.
Right.
But it was like his whole comedy bit, and then he would sing like a serious song, which I believe he wrote, which is "Mary, Did You Know?"
He wrote "Mary, Did You Know?"
Holy shit! Okay,
very
I know that
famous
one.
Christmas
Yeah,
song.
of course you do. You're a fucking Catholic.
Mary, did you know?
Look, Joel
This is about Mary.
Yes, she did. That was the point. Is that the angel told her?
This is my soapbox. I think
boy.
people are very unfair to this song.
It's a good song.
To Mary, Did You Know, or to Baby, Why Not Me?
Yeah, to Mary, Did You Know? I think that people
Baby, Why Not Me? Brian is a staunch defender.
Baby, Why Not Me is what it is. I never liked Mark Lowry for his song parodies. I liked him for his jokes about denominations.
Got it.
You know, he grew up IFB, Independent Fundamentalist Baptist.
Ooh, that's me.
Right? Read the King James Version only in church, you know, no long hair on men, things like that. He always made riffs on those kinds of jokes because Bill Gaither is a Pentecostal. You know, he'll make jokes where Bill Gaither's about to say something mean. He says, "Don't say it because you'll lose your salvation." Meanwhile, I'm Baptist. I can say whatever I want. I'm already saved.
Terrifying.
People shit on Mary, Did You Know? And they're like, oh, it's misogynistic. But it's like, also Mary was like a 14-year-old child.
Sure.
Of course she didn't fucking know. Like, he asks very specific questions like, did you know he'd walk on water? And everyone's like, yeah, of course she knew. No, she didn't.
No, she didn't. How could she have known?
No one told her that.
Right.
No, that's true. I guess I only remember the chorus of that song.
So
That's really
I
what
think
I'm realizing.
you know, people who hate the venue, which is fair,
Yeah.
also like go after everything that they dislike. But I say Mark Lowry's a sweet boy. He seems he's a gentle. He just wants people to smile.
Yeah,
he's very against fundamentalism.
Fine, but we need to talk about how bad Baby
This
Why
song
Not Me
sucks.
is.
This song's really fucking sucks.
The video
It's
sucks
just
too.
it's awful.
I have to like really step back and be like, does it? Because it's so in my brain that I like don't even know how to like come back from it. Does that make sense? So I guess to give you context of my experience is that, and also like, I wasn't allowed to listen to secular music for a long time unless it was oldies, which, you know, is like a weird rule.
Oh, yeah.
But as my parents had like the Beatles and Santana and whatever. But like
Even the Beatles were okay. That's really funny.
Right. Oh, yeah. In the moment of my life where like I had more openness to listen to other things, like there's a few hits from the 90s like on the bus that I got to listen to until one of my brothers was like, we're not allowed to listen to that to the bus driver.
Anything you got from someone's hit clips?
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
hell yeah.
Yeah, or like CD, Annette's mixed CDs, but like
I was about to say, this probably all came from my sister.
Oh yeah, MTV was like very exciting for me to watch in like 11th grade when I'd come over in the mornings before religion class. But like I didn't get to fill my head with any of this stuff until like college, really, or like I didn't start to. And then, you know, 4 years I was busy in college. Basically, that just turned into like now it's just where ska punk lives. Like I don't know anything else aside from like CCM and ska punk. Like so, when you make references, I might not get them. Like this is where my brain lives. It's kind of embarrassing.
With Baby Why Not Me, the joke ultimately is in Song of Solomon, there are a lot of awkward metaphors for beauty.
Right.
And our hero character, Mark Lowry, is a typical awkward guy who is like, well, if it worked for Solomon, because he had all of those wives, why could I not also use these metaphors?
Right.
He just gets his dad to play Solomon, I think, and he's just like, look at all the women my dad is fucked.
I will say, though,
gives a little wink to the camera. It's very uncomfortable.
The shirts, his shirt game is fucking on point in this video.
Yeah.
I love like that
Yes.
gecko, the shirt with like all the gecko. It looked like geckos or something.
And at first,
cool.
they've done a very good job, like really recreating the music video for Baby Baby.
Yeah, especially the opening.
Before it kind of goes into something else. But
and then recreates every music video ever.
I think they should have put Mark Lowry in that hat, honestly.
Well, a much better version of this video would basically be doing what Weird Al did with Michael Jackson, which is a shot-for-shot remake of the original video with jokes.
Yeah.
That would be funny. This, unfortunately, is not. Oh, well.
You know, which might be what he does with I Can Eat It All. And then I'm remembering the other one, which was my face in this world instead of my place in this world.
My place in this world.
And he gets Michael W. Smith. He's like Mark Lowry's like in a surgery place, and then he comes out with Michael W. Smith's face because he's prettier.
Wait, my face in this world, not my place. Can you say that? Are you allowed to say that? My face in this world? That's I don't know. I don't know if you're allowed to say that.
I think Mark Lowry has spent his life kind of walking along a very thin line of poking fun at so many things while trying to be as inoffensive as possible.
Right.
And to note, just note that he is in his 60s now and has been single all of his life.
Oh.
You know what that means. I mean, we all know what that means, right?
Sure.
Like he's basically trying to do a sort of Liberace type career where he's playing to a lot of conservative old women, and that's his life.
Sorry,
there's something very interesting that like the praise that I will give this song is that he makes himself the butt of the joke.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? Like a lot of like Christian comedy has a way of like really punching down. And this one
it's not the Babylon Bee.
Yeah, no, it's not. This one it's punching horizontal, I guess, into his face.
Yeah, it's just a goofy guy, right?
Yeah, no, it's just I feel like I was a little bit harsh on Quentin Tarantino a little bit earlier, but like he's doing his best, you know? He's doing his best.
He does look like Quentin Tarantino.
So did you have another thing about Mark Lowry specifically, Brian?
Oh, well, he's also just very, he knows social media. He has a very big presence on Facebook, Instagram, all these things. Apparently when COVID started, he streamed every single day, sort of like David Lynch does.
What did he give weather reports?
I don't know if he still did. I don't know what he did. I just saw that was something that he had been doing. I didn't watch any of this.
Come on the pod, Mark.
Let's go ahead then and move on to, like, again, Amy Grant was a cultural reset, obviously. And the other half of that cultural reset was her homeboy, Michael W. Smith. Michael W. Smith, guy from a very fucking small town in the northwestern corner of West Virginia, had a very similar rise where his first album was, I think, called the Michael W. Smith Project.
Might be.
I prefer the Alan Parsons Project personally, but...
And before that, he had written for Amy Grant, like we said. He also wrote for Bill Gaither.
Oh, okay.
So he was not just in the pop world, but also in the gospel world a little bit.
And also, much like Alan Parsons, actually had quite a bit of skill, both as a producer and as a musician, right? He sort of like did both sides and rose pretty quickly to some prominence within the Christian contemporary music world.
In 1990, he released the song Place in This World, which we just mentioned with Mark Lowry's parody. That song hit number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100.
Really?
So in 92, Michael W. Smith released the album Change Your World. And this was a major label release. This was on Reunion/Geffen. And if you don't know Geffen, it is one of the biggest labels.
Familiar with the Playhouse.
I mean, same guy.
Yeah, I'm sure.
After Change Your World came out, Michael W. Smith immediately embarked on a tour to promote that album. And the next video in this playlist is a performance from that tour. This is the Change Your World tour. This was recorded in 1993, and it is Michael W. Smith performing Cross of Gold.
Where do you stand? What is your statement? What is it you're trying to say? What's in your hand? What's in your basement? What's in the conscience?
I chose it because obviously it lives in my brain, but I just like listen to it now and I just think it's still a total banger. Like even if the lyrics are sort of like ridiculous, but those lived in my brain for a long time too. Like looking at people. I love this live performance, and that's one of the reasons I chose it again, because it lives in my brain. But again, like I've come back to this one as like sometimes like in the mornings on Saturday, we'll just like watch music videos and like, because that's what we do, like me and my husband. But like all of these terrible songs are ones that I've probably showed Kurt despite what he wants to hear, because I'm like,
I don't think this song is terrible.
But exactly.
I don't think this song is terrible.
I'm a longtime hater. I fucking can't stand Michael W. Smith.
It's like a ska show. Like it is so hype. There's so much energy.
Most of his crossover stuff that became like big pop hits was playing on adult contemporary, right? It was Delilah at night playing the new Michael W. Smith song and talking to you about, sometimes you just want to go to your loved ones and you want to hold them real close. Here's my place in this world. And, she fires it up. But this is like, Josh has this performance of Elton John that he always loves to show me. He's shown it to me 5 times.
Yeah, but it's so fucking good. I have to show it to you.
Because it's so good. He's like...
That's me with this video, I think, for other people.
Elton John in the video is like 50% cocaine.
Yes.
And he's doing Saturday Night. And like Michael W. Smith in this video is doing the same thing, probably with just as much cocaine. Like
Almost
it
certainly.
is fucking crazy. It is so good.
It's so good.
I was on fire for the Lord.
Like his shirt, like it's like I haven't.
Oh my God.
Yes.
He's got this like checkered jacket situation going on. He's wearing like 5 cross necklaces of different sizes.
He's so
different
sexy.
chain lengths.
All the cross necklaces are
okay.
smooching.
Yes.
I have a group chat with some friends from high school, and many of them also subscribe to the Patreon.
Yay.
Hi, friends from high school. This is a shout out for
Hey.
you. I was like, look, we're going to be doing this episode about CCM, and I have to show you guys this clip of Michael W. Smith in 1993, because this shit is fucking lit.
What's your line? Tell me why you wear your cross of gold. State of mind doesn't find a way to your soul.
One of my friends said, is Michael W. Smith extremely hot, or have I just not had sex in 2 weeks? And I was like, no,
he's
like,
hot.
He's hot.
Yeah.
Like this guy goes from being like, I don't know, the fucking George Michael of Christian rock to becoming it's Michael McDonald.
And then after that, becoming I only sing worship music.
Only
his last exclusively.
One of his last big concerts was the 20th anniversary of 9/11 concert.
And I showed you some of those
Just
clips,
awful.
right, Brian? Like, dog shit.
It's just him and a fucking grand piano. And
Sometimes
like,
they need cocaine,
Yes.
Sometimes you just...
But like,
it's a hell of a drug.
Just to frame up some of the other stuff that's going on here, other than Michael W. Smith with
Horns.
more energy than... By the way, he was 35 at this point, and he still had that much energy.
This gives me so much hope. This makes me feel better about my current career. I'm not gonna lie.
This is what I'm saying. But like, we've got the fucking...
I don't think he has the energy that you and Kurt have on stage. I've been to one of your shows. I was blown away.
Take the energy. You can take the energy level and put it in a different direction from the direction he's taking it here, which is, he's running around on stage. There's a fucking like brass line over in the corner that looks like the guys from Oingo Boingo.
Yes.
You've
fucking
got
rules.
Not 1, but 2 dedicated tambourine guys.
Yes, I love the tambourine guy. He's just like,
I like to imagine they fight.
Yeah.
Well, and if you have a touring worship band, you always have to have a tambourine guy. So he's really hedging his bets. He's making sure there's always going to be a tambourine on stage.
Just in case
a tambourine guy on stage, just in case one gets sick.
Yeah, and it was so good seeing Daniel Day-Lewis on the keys. I think it was his most method performance yet. Long billowing hair, shirt buttoned down 3 buttons, and there's like a wind machine going. It rules. The song kind of reminds me, it kind of sounds like it was too intense for Phantom of the Opera, and then like had to be repurposed.
One thing about the song too, it's in 12/4 time. You don't hear many songs in 12/4 time.
What? I did not even think about that.
Go back and listen to it again.
I haven't figured out the perfect tweet, but I'm still like trying to think of it in my brain to be like, how do I like basically say that this is like ska, like in a tweet?
Yeah.
Like, it's a thing.
It's reformed ska.
It's like, it's so, I see what you mean though, Rosie. Like, it's so energetic that I feel myself getting energetic just thinking about it. Like, it's really something.
The way this playlist is curated is that you really did give us like oases in the desert to like cling on to.
It's because it wasn't all bad for me, and I look back and I'm like, I still kind of like that. Like, I don't want to hate on everything. So anyway, keep going.
Yeah, and this was the order that this came in chronologically. It was right. It was like a 1-2 with Dolly Parton. So it was just like, whoa, it can't get any better than this. And then the next song after that was "Ain't No Safe Way," and I went,
yes, with the best intro.
We're back.
Best intro.
And we will get there. Boy, howdy, that was a good one.
Or we won't.
By a good one, I mean a bad one.
I don't think we'll get all the way there.
I did love the part 2 when he had his mic stand just like hoisted over his shoulder.
Like a cross of gold, if you will.
It was just over one shoulder, so it looked like a giant Buster sword from Final Fantasy VII.
That was fucking cool. Just
and then he's
stop
on the
listening
keys.
to us talking about it and go watch it right now, listeners. It's really truly that good.
I felt more Christian after watching it.
So if Michael W. Smith and like this sort of situation here really represents the excess, but also I think the excitement of CCM sort of breaking through to the mainstream and what you can do when you've got real talent and all of the money just like turbocharging the thing. The next artist that we're going to talk about is somebody who represents the absolute opposite of that approach in every single conceivable way. Okay. And this is a man named Rich Mullins.
Now the plumber's got a drip in his spigot. The mechanic's got a blink in his car. And the preacher's thinking thoughts that are wicked. And the lover's got a lonely heart. And my friends ain't the way I wish they were. They are just the way they are.
The short of it is that Rich Mullins lived in our area. He was cut from a similar cloth as Larry Norman, right? He was this countercultural guy who was really earnestly trying to explore what faith actually is and what it can be.
Yeah.
He had been writing songs in the late 70s and really got his claim to fame when Amy Grant performed Sing Your Praise to the Lord.
Come on, everybody, stand up and sing one more.
In 1981.
Now, was he from the Southwest originally? Because obviously that's where he would later end up settling.
No, he's from Indiana.
Indiana, yeah.
After a while in the industry, he got fed up. He also throughout refused to take he only took a teacher's salary.
Right.
The rest of that money he never even saw it.
I think
with all of his album sales.
Right, all his
and
album sales, even to this day, in his death, I think everything goes to, I don't know what charities, but it goes to charities.
So he and Mitch McVicker moved to San Benito, New Mexico.
Which is on the reservation.
Yeah, very, very small place. And he started teaching music. And I think he started teaching music at Hilltop Christian there in San Benito.
Oh, did he? Okay, yeah.
But I'm not.
That was a sister school of ours, sort of.
Sort of, yeah. I don't really know anything about it. So, yeah, he and Mitch McVicker moved out there and literally lived in a hogan together.
Which is like the traditional Navajo or Diné way of building, which is like an 8-sided one-room house with a door to the east and, like a wood fireplace in the middle.
And that's it.
Wow.
So my two stories, I know the person who owns his hogan. What was his hogan?
Oh,
really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Pastor Roger. When he left doing youth pastor stuff, he was a pastor at Native Bible Fellowship, which was a tiny little, mostly predominantly Navajo attended church so it is in Gallup somewhere, but I guess somehow he inherited Rich Mullins' hogan. So I've been in it. This guy was my youth pastor. But before he was my youth pastor, he worked out on the reservation in I think a place called Hard Ground. I think that's maybe how he knew Rich Mullins. I'm not totally sure. But basically, Rich Mullins got in a car wreck when we were young, died, and then eventually the hogan
1997.
Got gifted to this guy because, I don't know why, but he ended up putting it on a property out kind of near where I live, where the Mustang is. Bread Springs.
But so he moved the house?
He moved the hogan, and it's basically, he has a little camp there that he does little retreats for people, and I guess the hogan can be used.
Interesting.
Oh, wow. My bigger memory of Rich Mullins was he came down to Zuni, CRC, which, so there was a Christian Reformed church in Zuni, which I spent a lot of time on the Navajo reservation, but also in Zuni because my parents lived in Zuni for 10 years and then lived just north of there, but we went down there a lot. And I remember just seeing him perform live. And that was not very long before he passed. So I remember that's why I think I remember it so well, is because he got in the car wreck so soon after that. And so it was we got to see him. Whoa.
Yeah. eerie.
And he does seem to be like such a singular talent too, and that really comes across in this song that we listened to, Brother's Keeper, which is a song where he sings about how shitty all of his friends are.
Talks about fake friends.
Yeah.
I will be my brother's keeper, not the one who judges him. I won't despise him for his weakness.
You know, some of this was shot out at one of the cliff dwellings, probably some of it out at Sabanito. Some of it looks like Red Rock State Park.
It might be. It looks Gallup area, but it's definitely Red Rocks, definitely like the Southwest Navajo reservation area. One of his like quotes had something to do with like, well, if people in Nashville say that these quote Indians, I'm saying in quote, but like if these Indians quote are pagan and this is how like Nashville acts and they're supposed to be Christian, then I'll take the pagans.
Right.
Like that's literally like something to that effect. And I think it was, I don't know, it's interesting. And I think he's like a really cool person and genuine to what this belief is or what the teachings of Jesus are.
A very humanistic approach to Christianity, right? It's this idea that, I mean, the song pretty much sums it up. The song lyrically is about like, the idea here is for me to be my brother's keeper. I'm not here to like judge people. I'm not here to point out where they're wrong. I'm here to help them in whatever way I can. And that's what I want to do.
He really had an affection for the Southwest. He wrote about it in a lot of his songs. Rosey and I know people who have come out to where we lived specifically because of Rich Mullins. Spent a lot of time out there because of Rich Mullins. You know, there's this whole idea of like the ragamuffin gospel, and Mullins kept to that to some degree. I think even that gets sort of commodified. Yeah. You know, it's like a brand, the ragamuffin gospel.
The way they cashed in on it as a brand, much of that came after his death.
Sure.
What is the ragamuffin gospel?
Well, it was written by this former Catholic priest who then stepped away from the priesthood.
Okay.
And wrote this book about sort of not necessarily countercultural Christianity, but like a Christianity that is different from the Christian norms that you see today. But what it boils down to is, again, it's the same thing that Larry Norman was working with, where it's just like a true, honest reckoning with whatever your faith and your relationship to even the concept of sin and biblical ideas means to you. Rich Mullins seems to have, similarly to Larry Norman, been a rather self-destructive person in a lot of ways. Yeah. There's a lot of descriptions of him in that last year before he died where it kind of sounded like he was going to die of something anyway. Like he had lost a lot of weight rapidly. He was just not looking very good. A lot of questions as to why that is or what his relationships to certain people may have been and will probably never, ever come out. But I think he worked really hard to live authentically, which is not what you see for a lot of this. And the Nashville establishment, one of the big execs, I forget who it was, said, you know, he has one good song. Right. And in his opinion, the one good song was Awesome God, which is not a good song.
Yeah, that is such a fucking smooth brain take. I can't even begin to describe it. I mean,
I know.
The one we're listening to here, obviously, Brother's Keeper is a beautiful song, but there's so many other good ones too. And also the way that he played instruments, particularly the hammer dulcimer, which is probably the instrument he's most associated with, is gorgeous.
Yeah.
He played it with spoons. I've seen it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. What I thought was very interesting is that in the context of this playlist, since I'd never been exposed to Rich Mullins stuff, I think, before listening to it for the first time today, but I was very nervous at the top because it did show the native people at the top of the thing.
Oh, no. You're like, oh,
and
God.
Every other music
what's
video.
This guy gonna do?
Yeah, every single music video kind of up until this point had been very, let's say, appropriative of cultures.
Right.
So I was like, oh, God, oh, no. Yeah. And it turned out to be fine, thankfully.
Yeah.
It's just like, here are some people.
Yeah, it's just hanging out. Beautiful pictures of people and
beautiful
the
scenery and just like a pretty good message, I think, ultimately for this song.
I mean, it's not what you see in other Christian music. It's like, it's really like, you need to look out for other, like you actively need to work with other people and to make their lives better.
Something that like sort of watching it later that came up in my brain too was like the line, I won't take away his freedom. Like I'll be my brother. And I think that's so telling. Like that's so against like doctrine of discovery and colonialism and all these things, which like white evangelicalism is really based on, you know? So I think it was kind of cool that, I don't know if that was the intent, but it kind of feels like a little bit like a subtle subtle thing to say, which I think is good.
Subtlety is a thing that is gonna
that Mark Lowry has
be thrown against the wall because when we come back from our break, we're gonna talk about CCM as a sledgehammer.
What's cranking, podcast listeners? It's me, Driveshaft Persimmon, lead singer of 7 Loaves and 2 Fishes, guitarist for Pillars of Salt, and lead tambourine guy for Mary Was Only 13.
Jailbait.
Is your mass putting kids to sleep? Want to spice up your homily with a little rock? Do you love Jesus so much you could belt? Well, get ready to frankincense your myrrh.
He's alive.
With some contemporary Catholic rock. You've heard of contemporary Christian rock, but now listen to rock that adheres to a strict hierarchy of power. Blow out the speakers in your gross church basement with such hits as A Message About Self-Pleasure in Regards to Young Teens.
Hey, if you're thinking about touching yourself, don't.
Yabba zabba, that's informative and educational.
Teacher's pet.
Or pour yourself a hearty glass of Pope milk and blare the face-melting classic, The Importance of Shame in the Development of Young Teens.
Hey, if you start to feel good about yourself, don't.
Yeah, you're in the Vatican, baby! Or if you're feeling truly radical, you could throw on Jesus is with you always.
Hey, if you find yourself looking into a mirror and feeling like the person staring back is a stranger, just remember that Jesus is always behind you. I mean, he's literally right behind you. So when you turn around, you are face to face with Christ, and he looks you deep in the eyes and says, "Hey man, the cops are going to show up pretty soon and ask some questions about where I've been. So it's very important for you to say that this afternoon from 3 to 5, I was carrying you on the beach, which is why there's only one set of footprints on the beach." And you will say, "Okay, Jesus, that sounds good." And there will be that moment of tension between you two. And you will look into the Savior's eyes and wonder if this is the day you will make your move. And then Jesus will say, "Well, it's getting late." And you'll say, "Yeah, it probably is." Then you'll hug and inhale his scent, and he will vanish into the night. And if you sit on the toilet afterwards trying to breathe, and you get the urge to touch yourself, don't.
Yo, mama, my nippies are wet! So listen to the music that you can call Peter, because it's the rock to build your church on. Contemporary Catholic rock. Give music a chance. That one works better on paper, baby! Yeah!
I'll just read the text of what is on this page. Eternalize your prayers to the Lord. Eternal prayer is a Christian service that will commemorate your prayers for all of eternity on the blockchain.
Yes, let's fucking go,
We
dude.
also,
yes.
complimentary as part of our service, mint a unique NFT for your prayer that you can keep forever.
Yes.
Click pray now.
Oh my God, yes.
Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ, literally.
I'm
love
making
that.
NFTs of my sins. That way they can't be forgiven.
My sins are non-fungible.
The blood of Christ has funged my sin.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, what is the blood of Christ other than the ultimate funger? Welcome back, everybody. We've sort of now talked about some of the delights of Christian contemporary music.
Garden of Earthly Delights.
Now in our second half, we're going to talk about some of the horrors. And what better place to start than
Man-made horrors beyond my comprehension.
with everybody's favorite Italian Christian New Jersey sensation, Carman.
Oh, yeah.
party's over. Shut it down. I'm hunting for someone, y'all. He's a lion thieving rattlesnake, and he's broken every law. He's terrorized the lives of men, and he's under...
It's just pronounced Carman.
It's actually
not
just...
Carman.
It looks like Carman, but it's
Too
Carman.
bad.
It is spelled...
I'm a little disappointed.
He's not a man who loves cars. I mean, he might be.
Yeah,
but...
it's like my name is not Alford. It's just Alfred.
Right. So
These demons are invading this town.
Oh, it's so
yeah.
good.
This is Satan Bite the Dust. This is off of Addicted to Jesus, which is an album that was so nice they released it twice.
You might as well face it. You're addicted to Jesus. AJ.
Hi.
I was really excited about the next couple videos for AJ, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Like if we rolled you through the MRI as you were watching this video, what parts of your brain started firing off when this thing kicked in?
Every one of you unclean spirits, I'm running you out of town. Depression, strife, disease, and fear, your posse's going down.
Oh, that's dinner for the dog, that man. We sent him over the box.
But I know who I am through Jesus Christ, so I talk to you.
A lot of racism red flags flew high into the air pretty quickly. You know what it felt like? It felt like if Sam Raimi had suffered a severe head wound and then was just handed a hateful script.
Yeah, see, that was my vibe, my opinion on it as well, except I think for me, I would have said it was George Lucas.
Interesting.
That's
musically, numerous references to Indiana Jones.
That's true.
And the whole thing.
And Hanna-Barbera.
But the whole thing just kind of has that vibe of like, he saw Star Wars and Indiana Jones and wanted to do something with it.
Yeah, but it's also
and Back
like
to the Future 3. Like he hasn't actually seen like A Fistful of Dollars or anything like that, but he saw Back to the Future 3.
Well, there's so
And
many
he's heard of
hats.
Clint Eastwood.
AJ, at what point in the video did you realize he was never going to start singing?
He does sing a little
Very
bit.
briefly.
End,
Very
yeah,
briefly.
Yeah, a couple notes.
Not my own, I'm bought with a price. I'm a Holy Ghost-filled man, and I'm tolling the bell of your eternal destruction across the land. Because I represent a whole new breed of Christian of today. And I'm authorized and deputized to blow you clean away. I've got a weapon with 2 bullets that overcome all sin and crud. One bullet is called the word of my testimony, and the other one's called the blood. Satan!
Yeah, and you know what? It's not. He doesn't have a terrible voice, which I was
he really
surprised
doesn't.
by.
Yeah.
Because
He
I
can
thought,
apparently dance too, or could. He's passed.
well, at least he's in hell now. I think this music video is a crime, but it's also it feels like talking to a 7-year-old because it's like, and then the lightning gun, and then the lightning gun can shoot this demon, but the demon is also has the voice of a black man, and then also there's another demon who sounds like a Jewish person, and
This is what every episode of Bible Man feels
Oh,
like.
I've never seen that.
They took one of the kids from 8 is Enough and they gave him a lightsaber.
Yep.
That's what Bible Man is.
Oh, God.
So the thing about Carman too, just for sort of a little bit of added context here.
I have seen him perform once.
That's what's up.
Like Rising Stage. It was very exciting. Anyway.
I mean, all of his videos are big productions. I think he is the closest thing that Christian music videos had to Michael Jackson in that every one of his releases also came with a major narrative-driven music video attached to it, and this is no exception.
The only person who came close was Ray Boltz, which we'll get to.
Right,
but,
right.
Oh yeah.
But it's great because Carman doesn't like his music is like at its most generous. You can compare it to A Boy Named Sue.
yeah.
You know, like Johnny Cash, old ballad kind of stuff.
Sure.
But like it's basically just Weird Al's Albuquerque. Yeah, it's the music starts and he's just talking.
Right.
It's not rapping.
Right.
Every once in a while there's a sung note. AJ, this is so far from the worst we could show you of Carman.
We could have done Witch's Invitation.
The witch is like, by the way, we're turning all sorts of kids to Satan.
Right.
And Carman's like, nuh-uh.
Yeah.
I have Jesus. And which you see in this one too. He's like, we're the new Christians of today. We actively believe in demons and we're going to shoot them with guns.
Right.
Yes. And in this sort of like take on evangelical Christianity, this like early 90s spiritual warfare stuff is something that we have talked about on the show before as well with our Frank Peretti episodes, and some of the stuff about Adventures in Odyssey deals with this a little bit, but not quite as explicitly. It's this idea that there are actual demons out there, like metaphysical beings of flesh and blood, even if we can't see them, that are doing things that are causing things like, as Carman lists in the video, alcoholism, infirmity, something about idolatrous ways or some
false religion. The demon of false religion.
False religion.
You demon of false religion, you've preyed on minds so simple. I bind the spirit of your song so ill kabong. Play that in your temple.
To me, that was the most like, ooh.
But it's great that like Carman is able to go out and shoot the devil. Like, that's cool.
But the devil doesn't die. Like, all the other demons like evaporate into air when shot with his lightning gun.
Right.
But Satan himself is just kind of like, oh, I've been laying low. And then he just Carman just kind of like rides off into the sunset in the back of his Lamborghini.
Also, the vibe of the whole thing is very much, again,
he's half car, half man.
He's more car than man at this point.
Again, going back to the Lucas thing, like the feel of this is very much like Mos Eisley Cantina.
Satan lives in bars.
Well,
they just kind of hang out, you know.
That's why you got to shut them all down.
Yeah.
That was a big thing in our hometown.
The demon of alcoholism hangs out in the bar. This makes sense.
And can be crushed with Jesus.
Right.
Correct.
And a Jesus gun.
Second Amendment Jesus. This is why the Second Amendment is here, so that we can kill all the devils that are making kids gay and making board games cool.
Right.
Carman was the only one who was able to see any of the demons.
Oh, sure. He's got like the They Live goggles or whatever.
He's awake.
Yeah.
He's woke.
It's in the Bible.
You picked this video. You put it in the rotation. Tell us more about that choice, etc.
You know, I probably have seen more than that Carman video, and I did have a CD that was called Carman Yo Kids.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Hell yes.
I don't remember it, but it was kind of, I mean, I guess it's Adventures in Odyssey-esque, right? Because it was some kind of like radio play kind of story. And then he had like
so
music
we're gonna
in it.
have to do something about that then, I guess.
Hell yeah.
Damn it.
Carman Yo Kids.
We don't have to do anything, guys. We're in control of our own destiny. That's why we're podcasters. Anyway, keep going.
No.
Oh, that's
We
why.
have to watch
the new
Paul
frontier.
Blart Mall Cop every Thanksgiving. Oh my God. This is my life. It's true. Anyway, this is probably not the only Carman one I've seen, but I was just like, I have to have Carman. Like, it's, oh my God. Like, it's so ridiculous. And then this is the one that just came up in my brain first. And I'm like, I remember, like, that's the one that, like, I remember the music to, and Satan by the dust, you know, like, it's just in there. And so I was like, oh, okay, let me rewatch it. And I rewatched it, and I was like, oh God, like, especially, like, it's perfect. I'm like crying and laughing and like,
it is perfect.
It's perfect.
Brian and I actually watched a good number of these together.
Yeah.
It's pure camp.
The instrumentals are so bad, you know, because it's just MIDI. They couldn't get the Michael W. Smith band to play behind him. I didn't know anything about Carman growing up. I didn't know about him until I was in college, and then I was like an archaeologist. I kept watching videos, and I was like, this is unbelievable what I'm discovering about past civilizations.
I tried to find his albums growing up as a kid, and at one point I just had to cry, where in the world is Carman Sandiego?
That was good. Carman San Diego.
Well
Carman
done.
San
Well
Diego.
done.
I have a tumor now.
How long have you been waiting to do that joke?
Yeah, I was going to say,
at least 3 minutes.
I saw that one spinning up as you were starting to talk, and I was like, where is this going? And then I got to the punchline a split second before you did, and I was so angry.
One of the most cringy parts was the false religion, because it's like, it's just super racist. Like the music and everything, and there's like it's obviously like a Sikh of some sort. And it's a very like
turban,
cliche, obvious like music during the, you know, it's like, that's where it started. Like everything was very funny till that point, and then I was like,
right. I feel like that happens sometimes when we review certain things on this show, where like we can enjoy it for the camp value, and then it like just goes over the line far enough. The mask is off, and then there's this moment of like waking horror as you realize, oh shit, like this is what the propaganda purpose of this is, or this is what people are maybe actually taking away from this, and this is how these people think.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was totally brought up to think that way. Like all other religions are so and so incredibly like demonized that way.
Right.
I remember, literally. I remember
even other Abrahamic religion.
Yeah, I remember a visiting pastor coming to our church.
Yeah.
And that's where we heard all the really ridiculous stuff was from visiting pastors.
sure.
Lucky you Baptist.
Yeah,
I mean, like Southern Baptist, like a real. We're like fringe Baptists over where I grew up.
I remember this visiting pastor saying that all other religions are Satanism. Right. Because they're all false religions. They're all created by Satan. Therefore, everyone in every other religion is worshiping Satan.
Right.
Which in that case, like, makes it better if you're an atheist.
Sure.
And Carman, Carman's such a great prototype of like this type of guy, this type of baby boomer who got really into this demon shit in the 80s.
Well, he's probably a little more Pentecostal too, I would assume.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if he grew up with any kind of religion. Of course, he grew up in New Jersey. He converted at an Andre Crouch concert and moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Okay.
And so that didn't go well, obviously. And this is very much more the Pentecostal world. Like, this is my friends who would go to like Gallup Assemblies of God, probably listen to Carman and these other things.
And they would always have the what was the fun one? The big production they would do over at the door.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Heaven's Gates and Hell's Flames or something.
They would do the Hell House every year.
Sure.
I never been.
Sure.
Oh, what? I never been to the Hell House. Let's go, Brian.
So as we move into a lot of this more paranoid shit like you get from Carman, now we have Ray Boltz.
Oh yeah, the pinnacle,
right.
the pinnacle
pledge
of
allegiance.
the playlist, I think here.
I pledge allegiance to the Lamb.
You gotta.
Dad, has it always been this way?
Hell, even from the beginning, men hated Jesus. Even though he did nothing but love them and teach them and heal them, they nailed him to a cross. They thought they had killed him, but they only set him free to live in the hearts of people like you and me who believe in him. Then came the apostles, and most of them were killed for telling other people about Jesus. But by that time, it was too late. There were hundreds of people who believed in Jesus. So they tortured them and killed them, and they even left their bodies to rot as an example to other people. But the church kept right on growing, watered by the blood of these precious saints.
But Dad, did they want to die?
No. They didn't want to die. I mean, many of them had children just like you that they had to leave behind. But they were forced to make a choice. I mean, they could choose to live this one life here on earth and reject Jesus and be damned. Or they could choose to believe in the words of Jesus and live forever.
Anytime anyone refers to Jesus as the Lamb, it activates a part of my brain that makes me shut down completely and hear nothing but white noise. I think it's the stupidest metaphor that's ever been ascribed to him. Like, I get it. I understand the logic of it. But it's just, every time it's used, it's like it's always used in the worst possible way. And it's like there are better metaphors that we could have used.
Hey, check this out. Oh, Christ, the Lamb of God, who takes away the sin of the world, have mercy upon us. Remember that one?
Sorry, what?
I
don't. White noise.
So yeah, Ray Boltz.
AJ just lost 5 minutes.
The first like
travel through time.
The first like minute or so of this video,
the best worst
is. I mean, again, when we watch this, Brian, we could not stop laughing.
I mean, at the beginning, I didn't realize that they were supposed to be in like a future pod.
You gave away the twist.
Like
that's at the end.
Yeah,
spoilers,
but
everyone, for this music
it's intended
video.
also for the beginning. I thought they were just on a TBN set.
Right.
Because that's just what that channel looked like.
White walls.
Or like a side room of a church, I thought briefly.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, we got to talk about the prison system used in the future because, first of all, he's with his kid,
right.
which is its own
in
first
the cell.
thing. In the cell.
Is that supposed to be a prison? I thought that was just like that's where he lived.
No,
like everyone lives in the pod.
He's in prison because he believes in Jesus.
Yeah, he's in like fucking space.
It's so
jail.
close to heaven, and then they send you back to hell.
It's him and his son, and it's this guy, and he's talking in as gruesome of a way as possible about the death of both Jesus himself as well as the apostles.
One thing to point out is that Ray Boltz was like nobody. And then all of a sudden in 1990, he wins a Dove Award for another song.
Hold on. I'm sorry. What is a Dove Award?
So the Dove Award is given out by the Gospel.
Wait.
What is it? The Gospel Music Association.
It's the Christian Grammy. That's all it is.
But it's old. It's been around since the early 60s and was like mired in controversy because it was basically just like people who were relatives of whoever was on the board for the Dove Awards would win the main awards for like 20 years. And then they kind of pivoted into the CCM world from the gospel world. It's the main thing.
I just picture like Ralph Wiggum holding a golden bird, a golden dove saying, "Teacher, my award is speaking." And it goes like they've just spray painted a dove like gold.
Oh, AJ, you may not know this since you don't know Dove Awards. There's Christian music CDs called Wow.
I do know about Wow because I accidentally bought one thinking it was Now That's What I Call Music.
I didn't know what Now was until who knows
That's what you say when you're inspired by this positive and encouraging music.
Let's bring it back to Ray Boltz.
So we see Joan of Arc getting burned.
Ray Boltz, baby.
I remember watching this with Kurt, and he was like, "Is that supposed to be Joan of Arc?" The way she was just like,
because Ray Boltz shows up then, and he has this glorious mullet.
And we have a choir of the martyrs in heaven. Like it's literally just like those kids on TikTok when it's just like they have the heaven background. It looks exactly like that.
And with the
we
filter
have not
too.
Moved forward,
The filter where it like takes you and it duplicates you into 50 other people. It's that. It's just that.
My God, the costumes in this are they're excellent.
Someone raided the church play closet.
They sure did.
Yeah, because after those beautiful choir robes of everybody in heaven, we then get to what I'm assuming is Russia.
Yeah, Russia, where they killed all the Christians famously.
Correct. Because they're communists.
We're chilling in the old country. A guy comes in and it reminds me of fucking Mother. I've come back from Mount Everest from Mr. Show. But it's a guy coming back.
That guy was at January 6th.
I know it's fucked up and it's actually true.
God.
But
I have a feeling a lot of people in this music video were probably January 6th.
Except for Ray Boltz. He's gay and he lives with his partner in Florida.
Yeah, so that's the one thing I knew about Ray Boltz was he left his wife. Well, they got divorced. It was a mutual decision. Around like 2000 or 2001, he moved to Fort Lauderdale and he's married to a man. His wife maintained a blog for a number of years. I don't think she's updated it since like 2014 or so, but it was like they stayed friends. And so it was all about like her life of like coming to terms with the fact that her husband was gay and what it means to be a good Christian in that sense. And like props to the Boltzes.
I still don't know if it makes up for the horror that is this video.
This is true.
For what he did to you personally.
Ultimately, as with everything, this is about me. And after we have this strange scene in what looks to be an apartment in Soviet Russia where, the cops come in and break everything up.
Oh, right.
I thought this was the Holocaust. Because there's a lot of Holocaust imagery that's used. Yeah, I think that's the Gestapo. And there's a lot of like Holocaust imagery that's used throughout these videos in this playlist. There's a lot
wouldn't make sense because...
Do you think that's just them being really distasteful or like not getting like that
because like people were really focused. There was this focus on like Christian resistance to the Nazis, like Corrie ten Boom and The Hiding Place.
Right.
Yeah, that's where my brain went.
Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And that definitely was part of like kind of this movement, right, in late 20th century to make the Nazi regime and communism exactly the same, right? To make it seem like it's the same thing.
Right.
And two, to distance the actual culpability of Christians from the atrocities of the Holocaust.
And that's also why, ultimately in the context of this video, whether they thought they were portraying Soviets or Germans doesn't really matter because
it's the same thing.
Their imagination, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Finally, at the end of this video, which is just, it's glorious.
I think they should have done a scene where John Birch gets gunned down by fucking Mao's army.
We learn that That's dad and his son are in space jail. They've been in space jail this whole time, and the space police are coming.
I wanted to point out because he's talking about history, and so the guy who's in space jail with his son, I messaged you guys because I was rewatching the video earlier this afternoon. He said, well, in my dad's day, he could still pray in school.
Yes.
It wasn't always so bad. So it's like...
Yes, we could go down that route with the audio adrenaline, too.
The prayer got took out of school, and within 26 years... We have space jail for all Christians.
and then they fucking take them off to be executed because that's what they do to Christians in space jail.
Also, like, totally, they don't nut up and actually show him getting wrecked.
No,
like, they just haul him off.
They show him in heaven afterwards.
They haul him off down the hallway, and then he's just in the heaven choir.
Yeah.
God, that heaven choir looks so boring. That's the other thing, is that no Christian has ever sold me on a heaven that doesn't sound like the worst time.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's all stand and face one direction and sing.
Yeah.
Great. Cool.
Yeah, are you saying
forever? Cool.
You're saying that CeCe Winans video didn't convince you?
You know, it's the closest that they've ever come.
Right. It got pretty good.
I always think about the image that Weird Al put in his song, Everything You Know Is Wrong, where he says, but I get the room next to the noisy ice machine. He's just stuck in a Stephen Adly Gurgis play for all eternity.
Oh, God. That's...
So
that one's for me.
That one is for you. It's also kind of for me. It's not for our listeners. So
what the funny thing is also too is that it's very clear they only had those costumes for the Joan of Arc scene for like one shooting day. Because they loop that footage over and over again in this thing just to pad it out.
I also loved, and again, it's just like the 90s-ness of it. I love how the way that they shoot that Joan of Arc shit looks like a holodeck scene from Star Trek The Next Generation.
You're right. It so does.
Like the costumes, the vibes, everything. Impeccable. I love it. I love it.
Rosey, as a musician, first of all, I think anyone who creates music is kind of like a wizard in a certain sense, because
you're all going to hell.
Yeah, you're all going to hell.
Yeah.
But it's also just like I can't fundamentally understand how you would how I don't have a brain that thinks that way. But I got the sense by listening to a lot of the songs on this playlist that they were 2-minute songs that were somehow 4-minute songs. And I don't know if there's like a musical explanation for that feeling. But this song felt interminable, and I don't know if there's like anything like.
Was it not that
I think
long?
it's like 6 minutes,
Yeah.
5 or 6 minutes.
We also have to consider that the video itself also has the intro and the outro, and those are acted scenes before the music actually starts.
Right.
I'm going to put acted there in big ol' quotes. Except for that kid who was giving the most believable performance of the whole
scared.
thing.
Holy shit, that kid was freaked the fuck out.
And then also just completely apathetic at every good point.
His pastor went up to him. He's wearing his fully buttoned 3-button suit. He's almost bursting out of it, and he leans down. He's like, now, Billy, if you don't do this take right, we're actually going to kill your dad.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think that kid was acting. I think that kid was actually freaked out.
I have written some music, but it's all very terrible. And maybe one day I'll put out like one that I wrote when I was 15, because it's very like this kind of vibe. And I've thought about doing it with like as a comp, right? With other people who wrote songs when they were 15. Like, okay, give me your 15-year-old song.
That's so good.
You know what I mean? Like,
hell yeah.
Write it as your band now, and it would be so funny. Like, because my lyrics. I'm not gonna go there right now. Also, we'll save it. Oh my god, it's so good. But like, so I haven't like written, but like Kurt writes really short songs, and like
very short. Yeah,
he just can't handle. He loves how short they are, but at the same time, a song like Bohemian Rhapsody, it's a really long song, but there's all these parts to it, and there's this movement, so it like doesn't feel long. So I don't know. That's like, I guess, the positive take, or like, although this one kind of took my attention because it was so bad.
Just so insane.
It's so bad that it's good.
It's partly because the video is so crackers.
Right. I don't think that the song would be very fun to listen to, but the video is just
gun to my head. I can't tell you how this song goes.
No, I can't either.
Pledge allegiance.
Oh god. Oh god, they've broken down my door.
Wait, keep going. I can do a harmony.
The heavenly choir is coming in.
All my
That's all I can.
But I think you're right.
Anyway.
I think you're right, Rosey, that like some of these songs are very good. Obviously, we talked about Cross of Gold, which is a musically interesting song with a performance that is also off the fucking chain.
Yeah, to your point about Bohemian Rhapsody, it also changes like radically throughout the course of the song.
So it's like a bunch of songs.
And this is very similar to the stuff that like Jim Steinman did, right? With anything,
Bad Out of Hell and
all the stuff on Bad Out of Hell, fucking It's All Coming Back to Me. Like
these
are the kinds of Toy Eclipse.
Oh, I know that one.
these are the kinds of songs that can go that long because they have these movements and they're doing interesting things.
Right.
That's a hard thing to do. And ultimately, this song does not pull it off.
Yep.
Nope.
So, Rosey, you mentioned when we were going through the Jim Steinman songs, you said you knew Total Eclipse of the Heart.
I know that one. I know. I have to mention one I know because I usually don't know.
Is your first exposure to the song the same as mine, which is you saw James and Ernie lip sync to it? They are a local Navajo comedy duo.
Oh, that is one that is just for you.
Oh yeah.
Well, my siblings listen to this.
Maybe. Oh my God.
I saw
so good.
the German vampire musical that song is featured in. Okay, speaking of bad songs, here we move on to Michael Sweet, formerly of Stryper. But now he's going solo, and now he's telling you that you need to go solo too.
That's right.
With your dingus.
That's right.
Correct.
Let me ask a million questions about Michael Sweet.
Yes.
Sure.
Who? Why? What?
Yeah.
And how did this man come to be?
AJ needs picture of Stryper.
Yeah, so look up, just
AJ
Google
needs picture of
Stryper,
Stryper.
AJ. It's spelled with a Y.
SCR.
I'll pull it up here real quick and share my screen, and we can all just kind of
Oh
enjoy
my God,
this together.
their leading picture on Wikipedia
Oh my
is very
God.
funny.
Yes.
Oh, they look like if bumblebees were a mistake.
Yep.
It's a low rent production of Cats.
Yeah.
Are they
pretty
trying
much.
to sort of be like Kiss, but like Christian Kiss?
Yeah,
Well, I was
that's
thinking
definitely
maybe
the vibe.
Twisted Sister.
It's somewhere between.
I got some real hair. Yeah.
They're the ones who sang.
To Hell with the Devil.
Which I only knew because of Five Iron Frenzy.
Frenzy's live
Yeah.
album. Yeah. So we used to have a cassette of Stryper, or it's still at my parents' house, I'm sure. And it's funny that you mentioned like 80s stuff because I didn't go quite into that, but like Petra. That's what Petra
Sure,
is.
yeah.
That's how I accepted Jesus in my heart. You know, coloring book in the living room. Petra's playing Jesus' heart. That's the story that I still
Really,
have,
Petra
that I
helped
told
you accept the Lord Jesus into your heart?
This is
that
correct.
Right?
Wow.
Holy shit.
I think it was probably like my story at my baptism.
Right.
At my dunking. We dunk AJ. I don't know if you knew that.
Petra. How too exciting.
Oh my God.
Anyway.
Is he in relation to the decrepit Desiree?
Yes. So Michael Sweet went solo, and we got this absolute whatever the opposite of a banger is for this song about some filthy whore trying to seduce a man at the drive-in theater.
It's a weird role for Elizabeth Moss, I gotta say.
See, you thought Elizabeth Moss too. Brian said that. It's like she's like 3/4 Elizabeth Moss, 1/4 Drew Barrymore,
and she wants this poor young man's D in her bajingus.
Poor innocent man.
That's also how you can know that she is not a Christian, right? Like, because as we all know, if you are a woman of Christ, you actually don't have sexual desire.
Correct.
Like, that's just one weird trick.
Unless you're married and then it just turns on.
Exactly.
And then you're like really sexy all the time.
All the time. You're
Every
Amy
time
Grant.
your husband wants it.
Exactly. You're Amy Grant in the baby video. Like, just fucking forget about it.
Hanging out with your droogs, drinking milk, singing show tunes.
And so after we see her pull out a condom and be like, hey, it's all right. Then what happens?
It does look like she's been sitting on it for a while, though. Like, she probably needs to trade it out.
That was from the Grips wallet, actually. They just pulled it out.
So Mike, at this point then, Michael Sweet comes in, stands there at a drive-in theater. He stands right in front of the screen and starts playing Danger Zone by Kenny Loggins.
And then the guy who's being seduced by the hooer is just transfixed by Michael Sweet. He can't look away from.
I mean, how could you not be?
Leather pantsed man on the stage,
long, beautiful hair, buttons down,
and then he realizes that we don't have to take our clothes off to have a good time.
To have a good time. Abstinence rules. Playing is for
fools.
fools.
Abstinence rules, playing is for fools. One who abstains is the one who's cool.
The one who abstains is the one who's cool.
That's true.
Ooh, yeah.
And additionally, as Michael Sweet is up here in front of the drive-in screen, sounding like a discount Kenny Loggins, we have a number of statistics flashing, which are dubious.
Wild
There's a great point where the whole screen fills up and it just says death. It's like nothing else. It just says death.
It's like they live.
Right.
AIDS, 2 million dead.
Condoms 85% effective.
That's definitely
Incorrect.
not true.
Yeah.
That's definitely
150,000 abortions every day. We're learning a lot here. Getting a lot of really good information.
But it's done like subliminally, like they're flashing it too quick for you to read. So it's just trying to hypnotize the youths. We're like Josie and the Pussycats
sort of
for
like
abstinence.
sort of like a Nine Inch Nails video kind of feel to it.
He also keeps insisting that there's no safe way anymore, as if there was once upon a time.
Look, once we got rid of sheep intestines, it went out the window. Leather satchels that you tie off behind your testicles.
Big oil, plastic.
Cloths that can support your supple taint. Is this maybe a reference to original sin? Like the idea being that once Adam and Eve sinned, that was when STDs also happened?
Right, because they could bang all the time in the garden.
Yeah,
and
they fucked all the animals.
Right.
Yeah, at least once.
They fucked the trees. You could actually fuck the tree. That's what got them in trouble. They were banging the tree, and then the serpent was like, "Hey."
Yeah, that's why they call it the tree of life. It sucks you off.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, we haven't done one of those in a while.
I know. I was saving one, but I had it in my brain, but I didn't know where to place it.
At the end of the video, we see he's a reasonable man. He just turns her down. She's like,
get the fuck out of my car.
Leaves. Because, she also drove him, which is an interesting reversal of gender roles here.
Right.
And then immediately goes to send some other guy to hell with her pussy.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Right. And there we go. Like
Jezebel.
She's living her best life.
And then Sweet appears, and we've mentioned some of what he was saying. He just sits there and he's like, "Hey, join True Love Waits. The organization so cool. True Love Waits. Do it now."
It's like a hard pitch at the very end of the video. Just straight up let's rap, kids.
Look, they're trying to sell you rings. Right? They have a business and you need to buy a sterling silver ring that tells everyone you're a virgin.
This kind of wraps up this portion of the playlist. We've now talked at some length about how we could use CCM as a sledgehammer, as a weird sort of like way to indoctrinate people in really fundamentalist teachings. Going back and watching this stuff again, these are not songs that I remember because this was not the part of CCM that I was into.
Well, sure. I mean, and this song specifically was on the Brimstone Chronicles version of ZTV, which was like the late night hardcore stuff.
Okay.
So like it wasn't necessarily as mainstream, I don't think.
So were they trying to basically scare kids straight here? Was that the idea?
I think so. Yeah, scare people into abstinence, just scare people to not have sex and the purity culture thing, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's funny because this is something I saw, it more in my younger like youth, like before puberty, most likely, because that's when I was watching ZTV more. But it's so interesting because then later in life I went to Acquire the Fire, which is a whole thing that's a thing. That's another whole
loose teen mania. Yeah, we'll unpack that some other time. AJ, just to clear this for you as well, we're talking about a lot of stuff that is very specific to one sect of Christianity.
Sure.
Acquire the Fire is an annual conference that went on for a very long time for evangelical teenagers.
Right.
It was operated by a not-for-profit called Teen Mania, which is a very worrisome name.
That's
founded by a guy named Ron Luce.
Yeah.
Ron
That's a
Luce
category on X Hamster, I think.
Piece of shit. Yeah. Ron Luce is a man who will go to hell, and a big part of his whole deal was basically getting teenagers, recruiting them into this whole teen mania thing and basically using them for free labor.
Yes.
Jesus.
And a lot has been written about it.
This documentary.
You had been talking then about how these messages do or do not work. So that's really what I'm wondering, Rosie. So take it from there.
I mean, I guess in a way it worked because like I got scared into not ever like even trying anything sexually, right? And again, and this is where Acquire the Fire sort of came in, but like went there, did a thing where they all convinced us to do True Love Waits and like date Jesus for a year instead of like date boys.
That terminology, I forgot about that.
It's kind of gross. Like it makes me feel gross now. Like, I don't want to.
It just felt like you just like punched me in the chest.
And in some ways, like I was in halfway through 7th grade, I think, when I did the whole like I'm gonna date Jesus for a year thing, and like in some ways
we should all be sexually attracted to dead men.
That's what's so gross about it.
Yeah, you're like 12. You're like, I'm taking myself off the market.
In some ways it worked because I was absolutely scared of all that shit, right? And I just like
ultimately what this kind of stuff does is it threatens you with a number of different things if you don't comply, and it also sets up this way of thinking where you can either be with the program or against it, and the very moment that you step one foot out across the line, at that point you're out. And God forbid that you be part of that out.
This is so incredibly harmful for people who end up facing sexual abuse of any kind.
Oh, absolutely.
Assault and maybe you shouldn't have been alone with that person anyway.
Don't put yourself in that situation because you'll be tempted.
There's so many steps you can take to just put that blame on someone or simply deter them from ever even making a claim against someone.
Sure. Instead of talking about something like consent, we talk about just never putting yourself in that situation, whether that be you just need to abstain because you're nasty and don't do that till you're married, or if you love somebody, you shouldn't put yourself in that situation because you'll be tempted and you won't be able to handle yourself, which is also false. Like, I
remember, Rosie, when we were in high school, we had this like 5-week series of sex chapels that were in part.
I don't like the phrase sex chapel.
Sex cult.
That's the Catholic in me. I don't like sex chapels.
That were in part.
Sex chapel is my new porn site.
Carried out by Rosie's at the time youth pastor.
The Texan, and I fucking live in Texas now.
One thing that was said to the girls, they separated us out. The first and last weeks we were all together, and then the other weeks we were all separate. We were mostly just mumbling under our breath at how stupid this was, right? It's just, this is a load of barnacles. And I remember talking to one of our friends coming back from the girls' sex chapel, saying that they had been told that any amount of skin you show on your body, for instance, you should expect a guy to want to touch it. You should just expect that.
Oh God,
right? So then it's your fault.
Fucking hell.
Every young man's battle kind of shit that is also like so insulting to men.
It is.
Right?
Yeah,
reduces you down to like these base carnal urges that you have absolutely no control over.
Yeah.
This stuff is filth. It's disgusting. And to think that their approach, like, they talk so much, the evangelical world talks so much about the urgency and tragedy of AIDS and how many people are dying of AIDS. And what was the evangelical world doing to stop it? Nothing. They were putting out fucking music videos
telling you not to use condoms.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
Excuse me.
That's right. Fucking
Which is insane to me because like my mom is a school nurse and she taught sex ed in a public school. So she absolutely knew and taught about contraceptives, but I don't know that.
Yeah.
And she probably taught it to me too, but like that wasn't the main thing talking to me in my culture about sex, right? So even if she taught me the right way, like stuck in my brain better.
That's the thing. Yeah. Once those pathways are encoded, you can't break the pattern without a great deal of work. And that ultimately is what this stuff is trying to do. It is a tool of indoctrination. It is CCM as a sledgehammer. And
moving on.
It is what it is. So,
well, speaking of like misguided attempts to give knowledge to children, let's talk about the Newsboys, shall we?
Yes, let's. Okay, so Newsboys, this is my shit here now.
Oh boy, here we go.
I almost did.
Josh is horny for Newsboys. Here we go.
I was gonna call him a bad name, but I'm not.
No, you can. He sucks.
Michael Taint.
There we go.
There we go.
It was really easy. It was really low hanging fruit. I'm not good at.
All thinking it. Yeah.
All right. So Newsboys are one of the biggest bands and have long been one of the biggest bands in Christian contemporary music. Yeah. I would say that they're basically the Christian. I don't know. What would you even compare them to?
No, there is no comparison. Because like their career stays so big for so long.
They didn't,
and Tate even came over and now he is one of the Newsboys and they've appeared in the God's Not Dead movie trilogy. How many decades after their start in fucking Australia? A career like this is just, doesn't have a parallel outside of these sort of cloistered Christian music.
It honestly
scenes.
doesn't even have a parallel within Christian music. They're singular.
Sure.
Like I cannot think of another band in Christian music or otherwise that has enjoyed such continued sustained success as Newsboys. They started out as a pretty low-key bunch of Australian evangelicals. The song that we listen to in this music video is called I'm Not Ashamed.
They should be.
I agree. It is from their album titled Not Ashamed, which was released in 1992 on Star Song. And this video is, it's really not much of a video visually, but musically, this tells you everything that the Newsboys are about, as well as lyrically, right? There's this implied idea that everybody is sort of a fake friend. This is a song about fake friends and fake bitches, right? And it's like, well, you might be afraid to talk about Jesus, but not me. I'm not like one of those. And
that just feels so much guilt in so much of my life. Anyway, keep going.
You have to save your testimonies for church time.
Rosie, you really should have spent more time testifying to people about your faith.
I would always when
you were surrounded by other evangelicals and nobody else.
I feel like I would always find a way to just ask you, can I pray for you? That's my way of not feeling guilty, but not being too obtrusive.
And that, of course, is why the band is called Newsboys, right? They are spreading the good news of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
They were originally just the news, but as they were gaining international success, they didn't want to have any confusion between them and Huey Lewis in the news.
Oh, sure. And Josh, how long did you say that they've been doing this?
Since the 80s.
Since the late
1988.
80s.
My God. I mean, that's a mighty fine life carrying the banner through it all.
And I would say that they really
they were in the VeggieTales movie, right? They wrote the song Sleeping with Fishes.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I think they even wrote a song for the later VeggieTales movie, The Pirates Who Don't Do Anything.
I'm Not Ashamed was their first big stateside hit, honestly. Not Ashamed as an album is not very good. This is really the standout track on that one. And then a couple years later, they released Going Public. That was the album that had Shine on it, which remains sort of their staple song.
I almost picked that one because it's such a good music video and that one lives in my brain. But I thought the lyrics to I'm Not Ashamed were so interesting, especially talking about how some of your last episodes and different things were talking about how there's this belief that Christians are
you're one of those.
We're oppressed somehow, or you know what I mean.
And this song,
so that's kind of why I chose it.
Encapsulates that feeling. After Going Public, they released Step Up to the Microphone. That was their big. That was their big hit. That's what made them big in the States. They went and did a tour that was massive. Released a concert video for that really put them on the map. Their subsequent album, Love Liberty Disco, was released. Right. I saw them on that tour in the year 2000. I mean, honestly, it's been largely upside since then.
I'm not ashamed to let you know I want this light in me to show. I'm not ashamed to speak the name of Jesus Christ.
Much like Michael W. Smith, they've kind of now made a pivot from being a pop rock outfit to being whatever the fuck Michael W. Smith is doing these days. Hillsong music, I guess, is the only real way you can put it.
Now that they're helmed by Tate specifically, it's Tate's band now.
Yes, that's the only other thing.
He's tainted it.
He's tainted it.
Editor Brian cutting in just to say. And if you don't know why I've had that kind of reaction, why don't you just go over to Google and just type in Michael Tate Newsboys and go to the little news tab and see what has happened since January of this year, which is 2025 at date of recording. But suffice to say, the Newsboys have changed once again.
That's the other thing that's worth noting about this is that the Newsboys at this time in 1992 were fronted by a guy named John James. He would go on to have a pretty serious struggle with alcoholism, with cocaine addiction, with infidelity, and stepped down from being lead singer of the band. And then Peter Furler, who was the drummer, stepped up to replace him.
A band exclusively of Elijah Woods. And somebody needs to beat up these nerds.
Yes. Yes.
There's a thing that happens at the end of this music video that happens in a couple of the other videos on the playlist, but they input audiences clapping for them. And it gives off such a please clap energy that I laugh every time. I was expecting for them, because of the longevity of their career, I had expected that their music would be more memorable or more interesting. And that's
not what keeps you going in the Christian music world.
It's hard for me to say, just because Newsboys were such a core part of my identity, honestly.
Sure.
As an early adolescent, that
and he's not ashamed of that.
I'm not ashamed to let you know. But it is hard for me to say at this point, looking back, how much of that, listening to these songs, because when you say that, AJ, when you say that this stuff is all really mediocre, my initial response is no, it's not.
Right.
I saw you when I said the band Adventures of Elijah Woods. I saw you bristle, and I was like, Josh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that this meant so much to you.
No, but I don't think it's necessarily fair to say that all of it is mediocre. I think that some of it is good, maybe, but on the other hand, that could just be nostalgia talking. I'm genuinely not sure.
No, I can relate to you, and that's why it was hard for me to sort of describe my I have so much of it lives in my brain again, and but the one that lives the most music video wise is Shine.
Make 'em wonder what you got. Make 'em wish that they were not on the outside looking for.
And that's the one with the choreography too, right? Where
it
they're
might
all
be.
where they have the weird circle thing. They do a little turn. And it's,
Please just move your arms together.
We'll add that video to the playlist so that people can watch that one as well.
One of the good stories about Newsboys I have is that at our church they did a family, a talent show and my family decided to sing one of their songs called Be Still and Know I Am God, which is taken from Psalms or something.
That's a deep cut. That's not a well-known Newsboys song.
Woo, exactly. And so I remember people coming up to us afterwards being like, that's such an amazing song. And some of the people were people who were very staunchly against rock music. And that was where my dad lived, was he really liked the rock music and wanted the church to move to that kind of style and away from hymns. That was sort of where my family was, which is super interesting.
The interesting thing is whenever we didn't go to that many concerts. I mean, my brother did a fair amount, but me certainly not. But any concert that I went to
my dad put
of some
on.
Christian band, your dad was there.
My dad,
even if the rest of you weren't there, your dad was there.
There was a radio station based out of Albuquerque that was called K-Light, which also looks like Clit now that I'm older. Anyway, basically there was a very localized Christian radio that would do more hard stuff, not that hard, but they would throw concerts.
The hard stuff.
Right, we have some hard stuff coming up though.
Oh, God.
So
yeah, we do.
So they'd throw concerts, and I Five Iron and Pillar and PO. Well, I don't know if POD came, but they'd
Pillar actually came to Gallup.
Pillar came to Gallup, and the 1,000-Foot Crutch was the headliner on that show.
Are those all songs from the perspective of Lot's wife?
So, and my dad, and my brother, helped, pour the concrete or some bullshit for, the radio tower that K-Light would come into Gallup as.
Yeah.
Because he was that passionate. And so he hates K-Love because K-Love was like, can we share towers with you? And they were more powerful and they, took over the signal. It's a whole drama. It's fun.
And my dad always listened to K-Love. Right. But the thing is, that was my experience with CCM. Was K-Love, where they have played the same 20 songs every hour, every day for the last 30 years now.
But my family were
here's
we were
Mercy Me,
haters.
I Can Only Imagine.
Right.
Here's a Rich Mullins song. Right. So I didn't have anywhere near the same kind of knowledge because I just heard the same shit my entire life.
The reason that I think this is an interesting song is that much like a lot of Newsboys' other output, and it's not an interesting video. I mean, I know, Brian, was there something you wanted to say about the way that they did the color?
The video is shot in that it's such an immediately recognizable 90s music video thing. And it's because they're basically using a couple of techniques that are either something we call bleach bypass processing or something that looks like bleach bypass processing. So when you're shooting on color film, you're essentially making two pictures. You have a black and white picture that's forming, but then it also is paired up with little chemical dyes that are reacting at the same time. That's a bad explanation, but it's good enough.
Sure.
So when you finalize the development process of color film, you actually run it through bleach and it gets rid of all the silver and then you just have the color. If you don't do that, it creates something that looks like these 90s music videos where the color is less saturated everything is really high contrast, and especially those brights, like the whiter areas, get completely turned white.
Yes.
They're just gone.
It honestly, Brian, with your webcam right now, it kind of looks like that, honestly.
I am bleach bypass Brian right now. It's interesting because it makes your video look like it's been bleached. Like it looks like it has been like acid washed.
Right.
But it's actually because you avoid the bleach. Isn't that fun? Another way that they would do it is that they would just like clock up and shoot it with the camera way too wide open so that it takes in too much light, and then use a very cheap scanning process that made the overexposed parts completely blow out.
So, AJ, you had probably never experienced anything like this before you saw this video, I would imagine, right?
No.
Did this remind you of anything in the real life music world? Did this feel like it even has an analog to like
kind
another
of.
band?
I mean, the thing that immediately popped to mind, honestly, was Du Jour from Josie and the Pussycats. That's the first thing that popped into my head because they're boy band adjacent. They're like boy band light. And what's so fascinating about listening to this like wide swath of CCM is that it seems as though Christian music didn't have its own identity, really. So it was trying to glob on to any genre that it could in order to figure out what its own voice was. And this seems to be much more its wheelhouse. I think its most successful is when you use country music. I think that is like what, in terms of CCM, that's sort of where it lands. And gospel, of course, but gospel is I put it in an entirely different category.
Absolutely.
Right, because that actually has a history to it.
Right.
Yes.
Whereas this is trying to form something new.
Well, and something to that point as well, AJ, that I think is interesting. You know, you don't know this because you don't know the history of Newsboys, but I would say that their entire trajectory as a group over the course of the past, 3 decades has been trying to figure that exact question out. If you go through their history, they go all over the place musically. And it's not in the way that, I don't know, like fucking New Order has gone all over the place where they're experimenting with different soundscapes because they want to see what they can do, or the Beatles, or no, it's really more like, what is the most sort of marketable and accessible musical trend that we can tap into? And if you go and you listen to their albums over different points in time, I do think that there are some songs that stand out musically as decent, but at the same time, if we go back and look at their albums, early 90s is kind of like poppy. Then they tried to go into the more like alt pop rock thing toward the end of the 90s. Early 2000s was when Hillsong music was starting to take over the world. So they made a hard pivot to pop. And then most recently, they have like tried to sort of go back to their roots a little bit with a couple albums like, the God's Not Dead album, which of course he's fully alive. He's surely alive. Even bringing back a couple of the longtime departed members, including former lead singer Peter Furler and former bassist Phil Joel, for a national tour where they were all back on stage together.
Yeah, Phil Joel, I had that album.
They are all over the place. And I think that is what makes them interesting as an avatar of Christian contemporary music. They're both everything and nothing at the same time.
Josh and I were watching Discovery Plus just put out like a series on Hillsong. It's not very good. It's not super informative. But one of the things, they talked to someone who's like, well, the music is just so, it feels like modern music.
Right.
But it really doesn't.
It doesn't.
Like CCM especially in the 80s and 90s too, like it was really like, we had all the genres getting hit, right? We had the ska bands, we had boy bands, the girl bands, we had gospel gangstas, we had like X-Toll in the heavy metal scene.
Rappers, we had fucking KJ52 out there pretending to be Eminem.
And what happened was the Hillsong model took over so much, and everything kind of sounds like either like Newsboys or Newsboys if you turned them down to like 30% as fast.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
It's music made so you're supposed to hold your hands up to it even though you're Baptist and you don't do that.
And these days, particularly I think because of the influence of Michael Tate, Newsboys also sounds like either Newsboys or Newsboys slowed down to 30%.
And it's like the closest analog it starts to have. It's like it's trying to do like a hybrid between pop and like new age meditation music.
Well, it's like the musical theater problem, right? Where when musical theater tries to like adapt more like contemporary sound or like different styles of music into it. I'm not saying these shows aren't successful because sometimes you get some really, really cool stuff, but you can never quite shake the musical theater-ness of the songs, especially if they're written for it. And I feel that way about Christian music, is that there
That's what's happening here. Yeah.
There is a Christianity that's baked into it.
And in addition, the real business here isn't the albums or the tours. The real business is in selling your songs to the churches so that the churches will perform
racing them. Yeah.
That's sending your backing instruments, that's sending PowerPoint presentations, DVDs. You don't even need a pianist anymore. You can just buy a set of things from Maranatha or Hillsong. And now you have a whole set of songs.
Yeah, right. I don't have the numbers, but I would imagine that He Reigns by Newsboys has brought in more money than any of their albums. Because that is a song that is ready-made for singing in churches. You can license it to the thousands and thousands of churches in the United States, Australia, and wherever else and make a fucking mint.
And so I never actually, I knew the name Newsboys. I knew a few songs that were Newsboys. I always, to this day, Josh can attest to this, get them mixed up with DC Talk. Especially now that Michael Tate is here.
So
let's go to DC Talk now.
Yeah, because
out of
this kaleidoscopic view of music suddenly emerges a skin kaleidoscope.
A piece of canvas is only the beginning, for it takes on character with every loving stroke. This thing of beauty is the passion of an artist's heart. By God's design, we are a skin kaleidoscope.
I don't ever want you to use that word again, Jay.
It's what I'm going to refer to my penis as from now on.
What's happening? Why is it a kaleidoscope?
Also, why did it go up?
Because you look into it and you can turn it and different things appear. It's a skin kaleidoscope.
Okay, I don't want this. I don't want this.
It's actually when King David cut off those 100 Philistines' foreskins.
Threw them into
dried them out, crumbled them up, and dropped them into a kaleidoscope so Saul could look at them.
So this next song,
Bible jokes.
It's great. It's great. It's a good joke.
I need to pivot away from HA's penis jokes.
Okay,
to Brian's penis joke.
The song is called, I'm sorry, but it's called this, Colored People.
Colored People.
There's 3 guys in DC Talk. You've got Michael Tate, who is the guy who sings, Toby Mack, who is the guy who raps, and then there's one of the worst exports of Grand Rapids, Michigan, Kevin Max, who is also the guy who sings. And he's on lead vocal duties on this track. And it is a song about how at the end of the day, the problem is that we are just not accepting enough of all of the skin tones that we have. And that's the reason racism exists.
Because we're all colored people.
That's right, Brian.
We all have a color.
Right.
It's wild to return to the 90s with this I don't see color stuff with a modern sensibility. It's wild.
Well, and we didn't include this on the final list, but part of the reason I put 2 DC Talk songs is because it was so interesting to me, because I sort of grew up more knowing colored people and that kind of idea or ideology, right? And then when I was as an adult, I was like, oh, remember the old DC Talk? Haha. Of course, Greg does not, but one of those moments. Yeah. And listening to Walls and being like, well, they're talking a lot more explicitly about racism. They're being a lot more straightforward. And then flash forward to whatever they're doing with the culture is it's just so indicative. I don't know. It's just so interesting.
And even with Walls, there's this thing in both of these songs where it's at
least they use some words like racism in Walls.
Yeah, it's the onus for solving the racism problem is actually on everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, individual.
Right? White people really caught on to Martin Luther King Jr.'s vision of white children and black children sitting at a table together.
Right.
Yeah.
And they were just like, well, if black people aren't ready to invite me to their table, then they're the ones doing the how are we going to solve the racism?
In the cafeteria, right?
What about the content of my character?
Right.
It's built. I mean, and Christianity's ripe for this kind of thing because it's built in individualistic.
Yes.
Right. Specifically American racism, evangelical.
Yep.
White Christianity.
Right, yeah, because at this point, social gospel, which was huge in the early 20th century, is dead.
Right.
It died with the Red Scare.
Let's go ahead and talk about the actual video then. this is a big yikes, this video. And I mean, it opens
across the board,
just straight up. And it opens with a guy wearing what looked like concentration camp garb, including the fucking star. And it's like, what are you doing? You can't just do this with Holocaust imagery.
Well, it's like, why is that what you're starting with? Here you have a band with 2 white guys, 1 black guy.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And the song is called Colored People.
Right.
Colored People. And you're starting with the Holocaust, which was not about color. I mean, it was color had nothing to do with it.
It opens with that crime, and then it opens with a lyric crime where the lead singer walks forward and says, "Pardon me, my epidermis is showing."
Very bad. Very bad line.
And it was at that point where I had to stop the video and take a lap around my apartment. And this was fairly early on in the playlist experience, so I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it through all 31 of these. I don't know, man. And it was because they do try and like make efforts to expand it beyond just black and white, right? There are a couple of Asian folks in there. There are.
There's like disability. There's a guy with Down syndrome.
Yeah, which also
there's
like
a woman with canes. Like,
speaking as somebody who has a disability,
don't you realize you too are a colored person?
Thank you. No, but like that's the
colored people.
But that's the thing that's so fucked about it, right? It's like my lived experience of physical disability, which is real. You know, I have a disease that sometimes makes it difficult to get out of bed, and thankfully, like, now that there's some medication that is available, it's made it a lot easier to get out of bed, but that doesn't mean that I don't still have some bad times physically. My struggle with that thing, both in terms of what it does for me physically and what it does for me in terms of how I interact with society, is completely different from the lived experience of racism. And I would never, ever compare it, because it's a different thing.
No one has ever meant something as much as these dumb white boys
and dumb black guys. To be fair, Michael Tate is also dumb. He's a real dumb guy. So
he went to Liberty.
AJ, these guys all met at Liberty University.
I didn't know that was a place. Does it meet at in the base of the statue?
It was founded by Jerry Falwell Sr. Right. If you remember all the stuff with Jerry Falwell Jr. and like the personal trainer he and his wife fuck, that's Liberty University.
And the one who they bought a hotel for in Miami. Remember that? That was so fucking funny. And he turned it into like a gay bathhouse. Oh, it's the best.
The image that I have in my head is at the very end of the music video, where the lead singer is just grabbing his head and scream singing the line "colored people" just over and over and over again. And you can tell by the look on his face, he's like, this is going to age so well.
Yes.
He believes.
So in much the same way that Newsboys, I mean, we didn't talk about more of their like attempts at social justice in the same way.
Yeah.
Like, I'm Not Ashamed is not,
the same
but it's
kind of thing.
It's similar, right? It's like, we're going to change the world through this shit, right?
Right.
As long as we don't have to take culpability for any of it.
Right.
Like, you know, we can move forward, but it's not our fault. So like,
I'm not ashamed.
I'm not ashamed.
I'm not. Fuck all y'all.
Colored people.
I feel like we should move on from that song just so we don't have to keep saying that phrase.
So
keep saying what, AJ? Keep saying what?
We are a skin kaleidoscope.
So
that would be a good Hans Gruber and the Die Hard song.
Oh God.
Skin kaleidoscope.
So let's move on then. So DC Talk, as we've mentioned, has 3 members. One of those 3 members is a guy named Toby Mac. That's his stage name. And he founded a label called Goatee Records.
Oh, yes.
Now, Goatee Records, one of its very first releases was an album called Kansas. Kansas was by a singer named Jennifer Knap. And this is 1997. On this playlist, we included Undo Me.
Lord, undo me.
Thank you. And
colored people.
I will say that Jennifer Knap lived up to her name, because that's what I wanted to do while listening to this song.
I mean, and this is where you can get a really nice image of like these sort of parallel things where like this is your Cranberries if you're a Christian.
Yes.
Like Rebecca St. James at this time is your Alanis or your Sinead if you're a Christian.
Yeah.
and we didn't bring in the Rebecca St. James song, but I do have to say I saw her perform at the Lives Ablaze conference in Glorieta, New Mexico.
Well, I saw her perform at the Allegan County Fair in Allegan, Michigan, along with Stephen Curtis Chapman and Destiny's Child in the year 2000.
Holy shit.
The real Destiny's Child, not the Christian version.
No,
that I
the
put
real
on the
goddamn Destiny's Child. Very
Not
strange.
Destiny's Bastard, Destiny's Child.
So, this song is interesting less because of what the song is. I mean, it's first of all, it's interesting because it's good.
It's good. It's a decent song.
It's a very horny song. Sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need to get undid.
Sometimes you just need a skin kaleidoscope.
Twist it hard enough. You know?
The
colored people.
I'm just imagining like dried foreskins flapping in the wind on trees now, Brian.
So the more interesting thing about this song is what happened next.
So Jennifer Knapp, she was chugging along. She was putting out album after album.
I have some Brio mags with her on the front.
Nice.
Rosey sent me a lot of literature also, by the way.
If anybody else wants
couldn't quite dig into it yet, but we've got some.
Address.
So she did 2 albums 2 years in a row, which meant that she was making the second album while on tour for the first and then going into another tour. So that was like 2000, 2001.
That's intense.
So 2002 rolls around. She's completely burned out, says bye, and then moves to Australia with someone. She fell in love and moved to Australia in 2004. And she came back in 2010 to perform at Lilith Fair. And at that point in time, she came out as gay and said I've been with someone for the last 8 years. She left the Christian music market at that point. When she came back, she was not in the CCM scene. She put out another album later in 2014 and then kind of stepped away again and then came back in 2019 and said she was going to do Christian music again. She's still a Christian. She's just not in the CCM industry. She wants to advocate for gay people, gay Christians. And that's where we find her now. Kind of a similar thing to Ray Boltz, but a more talented artist in general.
I found this song to be more cohesive in theme and in musical stylings than most of the other ones on the list. And again, Josh, there is that layer of deniability you can have about it being a Christian song at all.
It's a song about sex. It really is. I mean, I mean this unironically. If you actually go through the lyrics, it says, Lord, undo me, but like Lord,
comma, undo me. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, as more a command. And it is the one thing I'll say about the music video itself is that it appears to have been shot in the same theater that we did Puffs off Broadway, the Electra Theater. So I really hope that Jennifer Knapp also doesn't have asbestos in her lungs the way that we all do.
Oh no. People I lived with in college, roommates, later after I lived with them came out as well. And I think we would have conversations about her, and we even ended up finding a really old obscure one. Marsha Stevens, I think her name was. She was a really early 80s Christian artist that did some terrible music, but very funny. But big gay advocate, and I just thought that, it was really interesting. And I think the drama behind it all, because of the realm that they lived in, was interesting. Yeah. But it's also cool, I guess, that she still has this belief, but is breaking a barrier, right? Or some kind of breaking that fundamentalism, I guess.
And is just not in this horrible, toxic industry.
Yeah.
Because it's real bad, folks. And if you don't believe me, read the interview with John James, former lead singer of the Newsboys. We can post this in the show notes as well. But very interesting, comprehensive, long article written over the course of multiple interviews with this guy, where he basically just talks about how his entire life fell apart as a result of the pressures of the Christian music industry.
Rich Mullins is probably the same, but again, we don't know all that information.
Right.
We just saw
Larry
him.
Norman.
We just saw him tap out and do something different, which is interesting.
I think that's the last thing that I wanted to land on with this section before we move on to the next one, which is because CCM is ultimately a commercial venture, and because all of these artists were under pressure of the major labels who had a great deal of financial, they had their chips down on this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were under pressure all the time.
Well, and when you look at the history too, just of the people who own these labels or the people who try to start like independent labels, or even not even fully independent, they might still have ownership, but they're like, they're trying to make their own imprint within the label, like with Tooth and Nail Records and things like that.
MXPX, yeah.
This shit there's always like backstabbing and changing of hands and mergers and buyouts and people getting pushed out. And it's nasty. It's
fake
nasty
friends,
business.
People who are ashamed.
fake friends.
Well, speaking about leaving imprints in the industry,
skin kaleidoscope.
let's talk about our final section here, our grouping called CCM as a WTF, because
this is where I live.
songs are wild.
Yes.
And we open with One Bad Pig.
My sleep was shattered by blinding light. High and lifted up upon his throne was the great I am, and me alone. Jehovah's glory was all about. All heaven shook with the angels shout. 3 times holy is this God of might. Here am I! Let me! Here am I! Take me! Here am I! Get me! Here am I! Take me! Take me! I am my way.
Which is what appears to be a death metal Christian group or screamo. I don't know exactly how to categorize them.
It was early hardcore punk.
So Rosie, you said you had some story. I actually don't know anything about Isaiah 6 at all, and couldn't even find much like looking around for information on them.
I mean, all I was able to find was on Discogs. We got it was released on Pure Metal was the label in 1989 on an album called Smash. But
the music video itself is a man having a mental breakdown on stage.
Holy conviction, rest me on fire. God, I'm so dirty. God, I'm a sinner before you. Oh God, I'm a man of unclean lips. I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips.
So the first context, I suppose, is Brimstone Chronicles again, right? ZTV. So this as well as the next one, which we'll talk about, Steve Taylor's, and then the Ain't No Safe Way, are the 3 that I remember best from the Brimstone Chronicles sort of like portion of ZTV.
Sure.
But I remember like this was when we had recorded on VHS because we thought it was so cool, which is sort of disturbing. But anyway, like I remember a friend from school was over once and who listened to secular music, and we were trying to like witness to him or whatever, be cool. And we're like, no, Christian music can be cool. And so we play this and then Steve Taylor's song. God. And this guy is like freaked the fuck out. He's like, what? He was like scared. He's like, what is this? And we were just
Isaiah
like, oh,
6 that is some real punk shit. Like,
it is.
genuinely.
Yeah. Like,
it
so
really is.
I think the passage is when Isaiah like says to God, like, here am I, send me. And so that's what he keeps repeating. But yeah, the live video is just, he's just like laying on. Like,
is he on drugs?
I don't think so. I think
he looks like he's genuinely having a bad time.
I don't know. I mean, I always felt sort of uncomfortable with it, but it was also like sort of accepted. Like, I felt like, yeah, this is, I'm not supposed to, like, this is supposed to be normal, I think. You know? Which is probably why I can convulse on stage just for fun now and feel fine about myself.
It rocks. It's cool. Like, it really, it's definitely, this kind of music is not for me, but even with that said, I was very impressed by like, the energy
antics
that he put into it, and the antics, and like, just like, this is a real show.
Yeah.
In the same way that Michael W. Smith was putting on a real show, but in a different genre.
It's funny because like Paul Kupek came from like the Continental Singers.
Everything that I own is blood and gold. I've made up my mind to share my time, my music, my heart, my love and care, and anything else I have, I'll share. I'm going to share it.
For people who don't know, the Continental Singers is actually quite a big incubator for Christian talent. Paul McCusker, the Adventures in Odyssey writer, he was with Continental Singers first.
Oh, wow.
It's a children's choir, but they do a lot of dancing.
We are young and we believe everything can be achieved.
Is it sort of like
Christ.
the Mickey Mouse Club of Christian entertainment?
Yeah,
interesting.
But they like tour around.
Like I remember they did that was where I first heard that song, Ride, Ride, Wanna Ride on the J Train, on the J Train, Wanna Ride on the J Train.
Yeah.
Yeah, which like no, you don't. I've been on the J train, and
I've been on the Z train.
No, you haven't.
Yeah, no. I got off on a stop, but I was on Jupiter, and then I got back in, and I was suddenly in the magical land of Falala.
We've all been on the Z train, the ZTV train.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
More saying this.
Like it's hard to imagine anything more different than the Continental Singers and One Bad Pig.
Right.
Oh boy.
So this video again, like lived in my brain, and I thought it was like a cool way to show people who thought Christian music wasn't cool that it was cool, even though it made me sort of uncomfortable. Right? This is my like struggle with like understanding real social norms. It's great.
Being unable to understand social norms, I have no idea what that's like.
It's just because my cultural context was like CCM and then like Native America. You're like it's like it relates in very specific moments and then nowhere else, you know. So like that was my context of it. That's all I knew of it was just this video. And when I married my husband, he was into punk and stuff, and I was showing him some of these funny things at my parents' house. Like, let me show you this VHS, blah blah blah. And he was like, "Oh, this is One Bad Pig. Like, this is a hardcore punk band. Like, I know this band, not because they're Christian, but because they're from Austin, actually, weirdly enough, which I have a story. Have another story. So like, yeah. So this was just like, oh, they were like an actual hardcore punk band. Oh, cool. Oh, okay, cool. Like they were part of like the hardcore punk scene, like in the, I assume probably 80s, because that's when it, was most active, I suppose. So that was just like something he said. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. Fast forward, me and Kurt are at like the annual Dr. King March here in Austin. And we see this guy with a One Bad Pig hat. And we're like, that's okay. Like we have to go up to this guy. Like, that's such an obscure band. And so Kurt goes up to him and he's like, oh yeah, I'm in that band. And he gives us a cassette.
Oh,
yes.
Hell yeah.
Just like even having cassettes is such a flex, because like tapes are such a big deal again now.
Yes, actually,
it's very punk.
So I'm not going to say anything, but check out Hans Gruber and the Diehards a week after this comes out, and you'll see some exciting things. Anyway.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so he gives us this cassette, and it's just like, what? And then Kurt was like, oh, that's crazy, because, we had sort of known that they lived in Austin, but we just didn't expect that to be the flex from a hat. And then he was like, yeah, we played a show last week or whatever, so they had played, and we were like, how come we haven't seen these guys? Like, we're playing in the punk scene here. Yeah. But I guess they're a lot older.
Are they still active? Like, even now?
I don't know after COVID. I'd have to check. But this was like pre-COVID when that happened, so it's possible.
It's fascinating too, because we talk about how a lot of these genres of music can't really shake the Christianity off of it, and this was like one of the ones where I was just like, it just felt like a regular punk
like batshit crazy, yeah.
I could go to Boston and see this shit any day. Like it's just it's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
My favorite part was that he was just at one point like actively sobbing on the ground, and one person in the audience was like, "Woo."
And speaking of other really bizarre but like extremely cool things.
Yes.
Oh my God.
I'm glad we're ending with this one.
Then we move on.
Yes.
Yeah, we wanted to end with this one. And I believe your playlist ended with this one as well.
Probably, because it's like the pinnacle of music videos for me.
With Steve Taylor's Cash Cow.
God, this was a cool fucking video.
Yes.
This is with
Had any of
Taylor's
you seen it before?
own Squint Records. I know.
Yes, I'm so glad to introduce you, because like.
And Squint was an album that was released. Steve Taylor released this album in 1993 on Warner Alliance. So this was a major label release as well.
Well, you guys mentioned MTV earlier. I didn't know this. Apparently, one of Steve Taylor's songs, "Meltdown at Madame Clousseau's," which is a fun music video as well. Aired on MTV in the 80s. It was one of the first things, like with Video Killed the Radio Star, one of the first videos, I think.
Oh, wow.
You can fact check me, but that's what but Cash Cow is like the pinnacle. Like, I don't know if I will ever create something as fucking cool as that song in that music video, but that's the goal. Like, that is always like the bizarrety.
Is so, like,
oh, I know.
Wow.
I know.
The Cash Cow.
it's a rock opera in 3 acts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
And when you look at
how did you feel about that? Because I know you love rock operas.
We walked into it and I was like, this might be my favorite one. And then it just kept proving that it was my favorite one over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And Josh, you had talked about word entertainment earlier, and Steve Taylor was actually banished from word entertainment.
Really?
He was thrown to the street because he would often tackle things that were against fellow Christians.
Absolutely.
Like in the 80s, he specifically continually picked on Jimmy Swaggart. And, well, he won in that fight of history.
Yeah.
I mean, he sees such a genuine rot at the center of all of this. Steve Taylor also was with Continental Singers. He wrote music for them back in the 80s. And Squint, after this album, he founded his own label, Squint, which it was a whole mess. And he got pushed out of his own. His own label. He's also a director. He directed the Newsboys did a movie in the 90s that I have not seen.
Like a movie?
Like a movie.
Is that what Take Your Leader from that?
Like the band inherits a circus or something, apparently. I've never heard of this fucking thing in my life. Apparently not very good. His movies are apparently kind of
but this video, on the other hand,
Josh's eyes just went anime big at the mention of a Newsboys movie.
and especially this music video. You know, when it started, I was watching it with you, Josh, and it was just like, this is kind of creepy.
Yes.
Must be unintentional. And then I was like, no, this thing's really trying to fucking get to you.
Yeah.
One of the first guys that he talks about is Robert Tilton, and that's another example of a guy who's televangelist. He's like, this guy's full of shit. Just straight up calls him out right there. And then he basically tells the story of the cash cow. It's this horrifying, monstrous cow that keeps growing larger and larger the more often people feed it.
Like the great cows of ancient Egypt and a face like the face of Robert Tilton without the horns.
Yeah.
Love that.
Well, I love his little bits like that. Like, even this is a little bit of a cheesy church joke, but it's good and he does it well. It's like the children of Israel and also the adults, you know, like it's like the little like it's good.
Yeah, there is a sense of humor to this too. And when the cash cow, because we have a narrator claymation guy who's talking to us directly. It's a stop motion sort of claymation
and it's so
style to the whole thing. We get a whole history recounting of the cash cow. And then the cash cow itself starts terrorizing the city. And when it moved into the frame for the first time, I was like, oh my God, are we finally doing pathologic?
Yeah. And it's really impressive the way that it continues to just sort of build on this feeling of horror, which is not something like horror is not something that Christian creatives generally do very well. We've talked about Frank Peretti on this show a little bit. Carman, Ted Decker,
Ray Boltz.
Ray Boltz. Like, this is not, but
Ray Boltz.
Oh boy, does this ever capture just the dread of seeing something horrible that is just growing even more grotesque and out of control.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually well placed, right? Because it's about kind of greed and like love of money. Which, I mean,
which is
Christian
part of all the televangelist stuff.
The last lines of the song are, perhaps you've already been licked. I too was hypnotized by those big cow eyes. The last time I uttered those 3 little words, I deserve better.
That's so good.
God, uttered.
He also
That's so
he
good.
sneaks a pun in there.
Yeah,
he sneaks a cow pun in there.
But also,
get out of here.
I love that too, because like it is a rejection of everything that the industry is about, but it's also something that speaks to what Christianity is, I guess, supposed to be about on some level.
Right.
Like this idea that there's something bigger than us as atomized individuals out there, that there ought to be something guiding our choices in life beyond rational self-interest.
We have to be our brother's keepers.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and even if you aren't a Christian or don't subscribe to that kind of belief, like you could totally see the greed and like that kind of thing happening in society and how it can like poison and fuck shit up.
I agree. This is the early 90s at this point. You know, we've just gotten through 8 years of Reagan and 4 years of Bush. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The rules have changed.
So it takes place over the course of 3 acts. Act 1, we get an image of like an unearthly chorus, like it's like a Greek chorus idea. Act 2 is what we've been talking about most, which is about, you know, the narrator telling us about the cash cow. Cash cow comes in, wrecks shit. Act 3 is entirely instrumental. it's just flying through saying, look at all the sets we built. And also just the absolute carnage that the cash cow has, like, you know, reaped upon the world. And it's super effective.
Yeah.
Like, Josh, you know, you had talked about in an earlier episode of this podcast how one of the main missions of it is to stare at the bad stuff in the world because your upbringing was like, don't look at this, don't look at this, don't look at the bad stuff. And I can't tell you how refreshing it was after spending 30 music videos not looking at the bad stuff.
So sorry,
to finally just have one that was just so focused, laser focused in on all the stuff that people want to sweep under the rug. And it was incredible.
Yeah.
It's an incredible end to this playlist.
What can we take away from this? What can we take away from, because obviously after this, it ended up all kind of falling apart pretty quickly. You know, like it was in the mid 2000s was sort of when the slide began. And then in the 2010s, Hillsong ate everything. And so
it became K-Love worship.
So like, what can we...
K-Lite got taken over by K-Love.
Right.
No more clit.
No more clit. Love only.
So what can we take away from this? Either about creativity, how we create stuff, about this country and what the fuck it prioritizes. What can we take away from this?
My big question that relates to yours, Josh, in a lot of ways is now that it's been sort of consolidated into one thing, do you think that is the final form that CCM was searching for all this time? Do you think it's found its ultimate life form, or did we miss something sort of along the way that it could have been that it passed by in favor of the worship stuff?
Or is it that within what they were trying to do, which is have Christian versions of all these different genres, there were people like Steve Taylor and people who we haven't talked about, like Five Iron Frenzy, who were willing to speak against what was the big conglomerate and the bad parts of that culture. And so therefore they got fizzled out of it because they were speaking. I don't know. Maybe that's my maybe that's my
it didn't help
punk.
that Five Iron Frenzy put out an album called Cheeses of Nazareth. But,
that's funny.
You know, they put out an album. Did you know they put out an album in 2020 that was actually pretty good?
I didn't know that.
And it's actually pretty damning, like in a good way.
Nice.
And I think it's good because it's coming from people that, I mean, they technically, I think, aren't totally a Christian band. A couple of them are Christian still, but not all of them.
Okay.
But like, they still have good things to say, which is interesting.
I think it's interesting when you look at like how much of this the whole time, whether it's CCM or Jesus music or gospel, it's saying, well, we're not the mainstream. We're not what's happening in the world today, in the America of today. And yet it's exactly the same thing. The Jesus movement, the Jesus people have the same trajectory as the hippies. All of this just turns into the same thing that happened to everyone who was around for the baby boom.
Right.
This all became, and by the 90s, it all gets globalized. It all gets sucked up into these huge conglomerates. And now basically it's all rent to own kind of stuff.
Right.
It's not about the music. It's not about the art. At some point it was, but it probably wasn't for a long time. Some people could just skate by with actual art in the meantime. And now it's just, like the Dove, like if you look at like the big acts in Christian music, they'll just be like, oh yeah, they have like 60 Dove Awards because all that shit goes to the same people because everything has become K-Love. It's all the same 20 things over and over again.
They just spray paint so many doves.
Well, I think
it's the stuff that you paid Hillsong to do at your church.
Right.
So Rosey, South by Southwest has just finished, right?
Yes, yeah, that's how I got to
you
see
guys
Dolly.
played over there a little bit.
Yeah, Los Corrados got on a South by Southwest official, which was our first time.
Nice.
We were supposed to in 2020.
Incredible.
But, you know.
Right. I remember that.
So, yeah, but you get like an artist wristband and that gets you in anywhere. And I was like, Dolly Parton's here. We have to go.
So Hans Gruber and the Diehards might have something happening in a week.
Yeah.
May or may not.
A little after a week.
Who knows?
But if I want to find information about them, where would I go?
Instagram's a great place. Twitter,
right.
we're on Facebook as well, but Instagram's probably the most active place, but we're old now and we just let Instagram auto whatever to Facebook. So Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter are the main places.
And Brian cutting in here from the future saying you can follow Hans Gruber and the Diehards over at Blue Sky at Gruberites. That's GRUBERITES.bsky.social. And you can also follow Rosey, who manages the Los Curados account over on Blue Sky. That's LOSKURADOS.bsky.social. We got the links in our description. You can also follow the Worst of All Possible Worlds over on Blue Sky, which is something that we weren't really a part of back when we made this episode a few years ago. So you can find us over there at worstpossible.world. That is also the name of our website, worstpossible.world. And you can find us on Instagram at the Worst of All Possible Worlds, all one big word with all the words in it. And if you really like what you hear and you're going through the backlog and you find some of our premium episodes and you're like, ooh, I want to finish up that one, head on over to our Patreon. That is patreon.com/worstofall, where for just $5 a month, you get complete access to the entire backlog of our episodes, as well as, of course, getting updated on the fresh ones as they come out, including one episode every month of Fancy Movie Time, which does not post to the main feed at all. It's just me and AJ talking about movies. And if you subscribe to the $10 tier, you get access to Lads Cast, which is our monthly episode where we just kind of sit around and talk about whatever. In addition to that, on the $5 and $10 tiers, you get access to our Discord. Isn't that fun? So why don't you go on over to patreon.com/worstofall. Again, that is patreon.com/worstofall and sign up today.
To look at Michael W. Smith is like the perfect example of how the whole empire went, right?
Yeah.
So I showed you guys this video that you hadn't seen and it was amazing. And he's a good songwriter and there's energy and it's interesting, even if it is like kind of weird subculture. But then what that became or what he became and
what he became is my sister actually went to a Michael W. Smith show a few years back. And
I couldn't. I'd be so disappointed because I'd be expecting Cross of Gold.
Well, apparently that's the thing, right? Apparently he started out the concert with some of his popular stuff.
Really?
And then toward the end, he got to the fucking schlock and the wheel fell off. But to answer your question, AJ, from my perspective about like, is this what Christian contemporary music was searching for all along? I don't think so. I think that in any subculture, whether we're talking about a religious subculture or, you know, whatever else, I think that artists ultimately are going to want to create stuff that is beautiful or ugly, but ultimately that expresses what they want their creative vision to be. I think that music interacts with faith in a really profound way, or at least it can. And I think that ultimately what we've seen is Capital has sort of, there was a period in time where they found a niche. They were like, this is a niche market that we can market to. The rise of streaming made the wheel fall off. And so they decided to pivot. And as a result of that, all of the things that had been going on that could have been interesting, all of the air got sucked out of the room and instead went over to the easy money, the thing that you could easily make a return on investment for. And this is something that we see in a lot of places, not just Christian music, but I think it's most profound in this situation because when we see things like some of the stuff that we've watched over the course of this playlist and talking about it here together, it's a real shame. And I hope for a place in a world where we can find, maybe I don't care too much about Christian music specifically,
right.
But I really dream of a world where we can create and discover stuff that's a whole lot better than this.
Right.
I'm the worst of all possible Joshes.
I'm the worst of all possible AJs.
And I'm the worst of all possible Brians.
And I'm the worst of all possible Rosies, if I get to say that.
Hey! Go feed the cash cow.